right, guys, we are here getting ready to kick off the Masterclass, MarketSauce Method Masterclass, and gonna start letting in folks in the waiting room. So we'll get a few minutes to settle in and prepare to kick things off for the day. Got a lot to cover in store for you guys today. Excited to dig into things as we all tune in. Great to see you, Ted. Shelly, good to see you. Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. The 1st of August. Let's see who else we've got. How the year has flown by, hasn't it? Good to see you, Jim, Marty, Steven, Bruce. We've got a Charlotte. All right. Welcome in, everyone, and good morning.
Hey, guys. Hey, Darby. Nice seeing you again.
Good to see you, Marty. It's been a minute.
Yeah. Should have checked the mirror before I jumped on. I might have to go put a hat on.
You look good. You're fine.
Thank you.
Funny though.
No, thank you all for showing up just a few minutes early. We'll make sure that we give people a couple of minutes to tune in here before we dig in. We got about a 3-hour time block for today's masterclass, which is not going to be just me talking the entire time. Rather, we'll be outlining the contents of the most updated recipe that we're building out with our MarketSauce platform, how we're applying it with the Game Changer co-creation partnership we're doing right now, and how that is developing back into bringing your ideas to market, gaining clarity on who your ideal target audience is, and creating the content and the campaigns to reach that market and upgrade your marketing in the process. Shelly, I sent you over a brief this week regarding the baby boomers. I'm wondering, before we dig in today, did you have any time to review that?
So I haven't had a lot of time, good news, bad news, but I definitely have reviewed it. And I'm in an interesting place of going narrow deep on this market and doing a lot of research. And the brief really pointed out a game plan and a lot of language that's just imperative for putting it out in the world.
Awesome. That's great. And I wanted to have that as an example we could kind of demonstrate today for, like, what does this look like as like an end result, or where you can walk away from today having access to. I've just finished up sorry about that. I'll be sending out a recording of this inside of the group, guys, so just keep an eye out for that recording whenever we wrap things up. And we're going to be doing some post-production and getting you guys transcripts, all the resources, and I'll have links for that as well on today's call. But I did complete putting together a GPT within ChatGPT this week that is going to help just even more with putting the process in action that we're going to be walking you guys through today. I've also got a workbook that is a complete compilation of the prompts and the whole prompt and command stack that we've developed that is ultimately going to help you lead to the outputs that you're going to be forming with your marketing game plan and then going and putting into action. And as we get ready to jump into today's class and interactive workshop, I want to put an extra emphasis on the point that while we're using AI and ChatGPT, I recommend Claude as part of your workflow for how to approach this process, as we're going to be demonstrating today, is a huge companion for helping on the marketing and the research and the ideation and the language and all of the things that we're going to be coming up with today. But there's no replacement for going out and having the human to human interaction that's going to validate the contents that we're going to be putting out, testing, the feedback and the response and the engagement to what you're putting out in inside of your campaigns. And so that's what we're going to be digging into today. I think everybody is here. Before we kick off, I just want to do a quick kind of set before we dig in to make sure everyone here is either clear on a product or service that they're going to be selling right now, and or if you're not clear on that, or you're who the target audience that we're going to be starting with is for you. I'd love to hear if you come off for just a minute, say who you are, what you're doing a campaign around right now, and just a thumbs up if you've got your ideal customer persona already locked in, or if there's anywhere that you're looking for some clarity specifically on this masterclass, because we will have interactive segments of this where we're going to be walking through answering questions. Shelly, I saw a hand raised with where your focus is going to be. But just give like a quick overview of what your goal is for what kind of campaign you're going to be creating coming out of this masterclass.
What will I be doing? Is that the question?
Yeah. I just want to kind of hear where everyone's focus is going to be. Like what product are you looking to sell? What's the market that you're looking to serve?
So literally I've been doing what I do for 20 years. And for some reason, I just had this brainstorm about, well, let's say I'm 73 years old and I'm proud of it. And I'm excited to be who I am. And I'm excited for the next chapter. But a lot of people I talk to are like, I'm 65, I'm playing the back nine. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. They're always talking about this aging out. And I'm like, I'm not aging out, I'm aging in. And so with this thought process, thank you, Bruce. And so with this thought process, I started to say, who am I really? And then I'm like, who's my clients? And I looked at all of them and I'm like, we are all baby boomers. I have some people that are in their 50s. And then I did research. 40% of all small businesses in the United States are owned by baby boomers. And I had a great conversation yesterday with another marketing person. He said, Shelly, it's an unserved marketplace because no one's really saying that, baby boomer. So I'm taking a program that I've created called Concept to Customer, and I've incorporated baby boomer and AI, the brief, into the offer. And I also just contracted, so here you get your narrow deep. I just contracted with a podcast director, and we're creating 8 episodes called Boomers in Business. Get it? Aging out, in, boomers in business. So that is, for me, I always teach narrow deep, but it's hard to find your narrow deep. But when you do, it's like being in your brand new car and picking a road, and then that road is going to lead you to everything else you want. And so that's what this does. Once you determine your narrow deep, this is going to help you formulate how to reach them, what you want to say to them, just make the whole, I get this is like, oh my God, it's all here. Like you can't help but be excited about your direction.
Awesome. Yeah, we're gonna give you guys the tools and the resources to be able to create these for yourselves, but also for clients and such that you're working with, because there's a lot of power to being able to bring this to your existing offers and services and applying it for your own specific use cases. Anyone else got a target market ready to rock and roll with your campaign? We'd love to hear where your guys' focus is going to be. And not just today, because we've got the whole month for focusing on this process. We already set up a call for next week, 10 o'clock in the morning. We're going to be checking in, working with you guys. And then everyone here is going to be first in line as we start to kind of onboard into the MarketSauce platform, which I'll share kind of where an update later at the end of the class with that. But so you come off, Bruce, any specific focus for you coming on this call?
Yeah, am I still on mute? Let me see. No, I'm off mute. Okay. Yeah, I've got a new target market for approaching the go high level automation and marketing CRM system is naturopathic physicians. So my neighbor's a naturopathic physician. I've been going to him for several years, and just like chiropractors and the people that are mostly cash payment, medical services, alternative services. They live and die by their marketing, and they're horrible at it. Basically. So, my guy's pretty progressive. So he does actually a local radio show, and they go on and talking. So he's got all this tons of content, and he's been spending like, $300 a month on Google ads and stuff, just sending it to his website, but the website isn't optimized for conversion or anything. So, and he sees a few clicks, but he has no idea where anything's coming from. So yeah, take it. I already made an ebook out of one of his podcasts or radio shows, and starting to build out a landing page, and do a lead magnet and some follow-up and a chat bot, and then the stuff that Keon's working on with the voice, convert to voice too, because a lot of these people, are probably in their at least late 50s, if not up through their 70s, and might prefer a phone conversation rather than trying to, text on their phones. I think it's, and then he's connected to the Arizona Association of Naturopathic Physicians. He's former president for a few years. So I think there's a lot of leverage there, and these people are willing to pay, because one customer is worth a lot to them. You get one person in the door, and it's a lot for them. So
That's
yeah,
great. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
new niche to me, so we'd be interested to see how this all develops for you and builds up.
yeah,
Thanks, Bruce. Hey, Roger.
Hey, how you doing,
Good to see
Darby?
you. Good to see you.
Good
Doing
morning.
Morning.
Yeah, I've got a client that I've done a little bit of work with using AI. It's a med spa that they do a lot of different things, but the three services that we've been focusing on for them was tattoo removal, hair restoration, and I'm trying to think of the other one, hair removal. So those are the three, and I've got, I think, all the things I need for the tattoo removal today to use that as a a working a campaign. I've created, just kind of ad hoc, done some work on creating the avatar, and used that, and for the company, both the customer avatar plus the company's avatar. And I've generated several articles for them already. So the goal is to do better at that for them, and to create both short form and long form work. What we've created so far was basically long form for their blog, to try to get some activity on the SEO side. So that's, and I realize that I'm envisioning that each one of these services will require, an individual approach. In other words, the persona for somebody who wants to remove their tattoo is much different than somebody that wants to remove, body hair or something like that. So different markets, but one business behind it. So that's what I've got today, the assets for that to kind of move forward, with that as a campaign.
Excellent. That's
Yeah.
great. Looking forward to digging in. Anyone else all set? John, good to see you.
Hey, Darby, how are you?
Doing well.
I'll be like serving clients and myself. I have a background in business brokerage and finance up here in Canada, and I've been doing automation using some of these new tools. But I've just been having a lot of conversations over the last, I'd say, 6 weeks or so, and a lot of people, I'd say 55 to 70 years old, they've been in business for a long time. They're not systematized. Their business is probably worth, say it's worth X. If they automate and improve it, it's probably worth 3 to 4X. So for this specific case, I've got a client who I do some work with, and it's up in Canada. They work with business owners, high net worth individuals, who here in Canada, they get slaughtered in tax, slaughtered. Their whole life's work goes to the government. And so there's all kinds of interesting strategies. So I'm going to focus on that specifically, but in this case, but there's everybody I talk to, they've got an interesting story. They can utilize this. And for example, this one lady says, well, I do kind of referral marketing. I help business. I said, what do you mean by that? And this woman has spent 35 years working, and she's come up with a method of communicating and listening to clients and building referral strategies like I have never heard before. And I'm thinking, this is unbelievable. I said, anybody in business, and she focuses on a few markets, and I suggested lawyers. I've done some work with PI attorneys, and she goes, I never thought of that. This is unbelievable. So, and I just keep getting stories like that. And I haven't even had a chance to throw it into the MarketSauce method, but my point is like Sherry was saying, there's a lot of people with life experiences that is just untapped. So that's kind of what I see.
That's great. Yeah, I think we'll find some interesting segments to focus on with this throughout this process for sure. Anybody else with a focus or anything directly that they're looking to implement on during today's call before we dive in? Ted, good to see you.
Yeah. I'm in Shelly's boat. Actually, I realized most of my clients are baby boomers, and I could retire, but I don't want to. And we're all kind of figuring out, what am I going to do for the next 20 years? So I'm helping them kind of figure that out. So it's definitely untapped market.
All right. I see there's a lot of opportunity to work with and serve the baby boomer market out there right now. So it's cool to see where you guys are all focusing in this regard. Anyone else? Marty, Jim, Terry's focus for today and kind of where you're at with your campaign right now?
Yeah, Darby, I can go. Yeah, so I have an AI Foundations certification course that also leads into AI transformation consulting. And so my focus is basically small, medium-sized businesses. So get to the leadership there to bring in the training, and then me coaching their teams to, basically do whatever the business process is to help them automate that with AI, especially with Gen AI, custom GPTs, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And my struggle always is, once I get somebody on the phone and I talk to them, they're all like, this is cool, but I'm just terrible at building out the lead strategy and staying consistent with it, right? So, what I'm looking for is, what is the strategy? I create posts, but everything's kind of disjointed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll create a post. I'll be consistent on LinkedIn for 2 or 3 days, and then it drops. And it's because there's just no planning. The course and the delivery of it are all prepped and ready to go. It's just trying to get people to buy in and get on the phone and talk about it.
So I'm trying to, who is your ideal client, Marty?
Basically, the leadership of small businesses. So any small business, medium size, right, up to probably
leadership or owner. Leadership or owner.
Right now, leadership. If I can get an owner, that's great. But the companies that I've dealt with in the past are usually in the like 1,000-person range. So trying to get to the owner, and maybe that's me limiting myself, right? And so this type of thing that I need to look at. But I need somebody in a leadership position, because the way AI is going into businesses is it shouldn't be one person at a time. You need to bring the organization up as a whole. And so that's what would lead into the transformation coaching, right? Which is the long tail of the offering.
And it's not a particular small business, it's just small business?
Just small businesses, right? Everybody's got deliverables. So if we can identify the deliverable, you can break down the tasks of that deliverable and then identify which tasks can be automated. And you can actually use AI to help you figure that out. Identify which tasks that lead to that deliverable can be automated. So if you're creating something that you do on a monthly basis that takes you 2 days if you can break the task down and use some automation using AI, you can take that 2-day task down to a couple of hours, right? So now instead of once a month for 2 days, once a month for 2 hours, you're doing this, and then you just keep ticking them down till you're just more and more efficient.
So,
Makes sense.
yeah, Darby, so I am really willing to dive in and do some coaching, some strategy, you know, positioning, if during the course of today you want me to do that.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
willing to help.
once we go through the demo and kind of like the whole workflow, then we're gonna like talk about how to reposition the offer based on, you know, the different markets. And like, I think that'll be the good time, probably near more the second half of the more interactive side of the workshop.
Can I give Marty one homework?
Sure.
Please.
Marty, I want you to think while we're doing this of what small business, tech, health, but I just want you to think, if you will, you cannot go after small business, because that puts you can't be, you have to be something to somebody. So, and I also didn't understand, so I just wanted to think about who. I also didn't understand where you're getting stuck. Is it in closing the sale? Or is it, like, if you're getting the calls, are you stuck at closing the sale?
It's getting the call.
Getting the call. Okay,
Yeah.
so if you
And
think about that, then I think Darby and I can help you.
Okay. And then there's something else, but we can get into that later, right? There are things going on in the industry that what's happening is as these organizations are all converting to AI, they're bringing in new people to define what their AI strategy is for the whole organization. So I've had a couple cases where I've gotten into 2 or 3. It looks like it's getting ready to close, and then all of a sudden they hire a new AI, you know, head of AI, and they want to put a hold on everything and try to go figure out what to do. And so obviously in my story, I'm not helping them understand that this is one of the big things that you need to do, right? So it should fit into their strategy. But thank you. I don't want to take up everybody's time, but Shelly, I appreciate that, and I'll
Think,
do
just
that.
think, we'll get to it.
But if you make me think, it's going to take longer. Okay, just want to warn you.
We're sending you coffee right now.
Thanks, Marty.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Anything for you, Tyrese? So I come off the camera. Good to see you.
Good to be here. I'm actually going into a joint venture with Chris, actually, and promoting Ghostwriter. So we're looking at entrepreneurs and other people that are subject matter experts, industry experts, who want to write a book to get more speaking engagements. And so we are in the process of creating a course. And then from said course, they'll actually have a book at the end of it. So the goal is to try to get the marketing out to those who actually have a book in mind already, but haven't had a way to figure out how to do it. And so that's what we are after.
Awesome. Anything you want to add to that, Chris?
Just that I've had a hard time, mainly because I'm not a marketing person. I'm a tech guy. I've had a hard time putting the offer together. In addition to the technical challenges. So I get kind of stuck on the marketing part.
Cool. Well, we'll definitely address that through the product service side here on today's call, at least to some degree, and have time to kind of brainstorm and flesh some things out as we go through here. But again, just if we don't get to everything on today's call, guys, we've got the month, we've got the group, we've got interaction in between now and the check-in calls that we'll be working through, supporting you guys in implementing this process. So,
and you never know where you're going to end up, but
yep.
I have worked with 15 ghostwriters. Just got one woman, you had to look at her profile, what we did, and we just about 2 months ago, she closed a $60,000 memoir. So I'm
Wow, that's
happy
awesome.
to hear that. It's just weird because, like, there's not that many people are interested in, you know, ghostwriting, but I definitely have some feedback.
Cool, thanks.
Fun, really fun.
Derek, great to see you. Anything you're focused on today?
Sure. I am kind of in the same boat with Bruce, where I'm working with a chiropractor and he's working on expanding his business. He has a good sized practice, but he doesn't have enough clients coming in the door. And he has recently invested in a new therapy machine, non-invasive, and he wants to get more clients in and use that machine. And I've been part of his case study for this new device. And he and I are working together to put something together to get that going, bring more
Okay.
clients in the door also for his other services that he offers.
What is the new service?
The new service is a non-invasive therapy machine called Piezo Wave.
Is it like SoftWave? Do you know?
It's not, no.
Okay.
So you're working on the campaign for your chiropractor partner to get more leads in the door to try this new machine, and then that'll lead to additional services.
Correct.
Awesome.
Is it ultrasound therapy?
It is somewhat, yes.
Okay.
All
And is
right.
it to treat joint, muscle pain, back pain? What is it?
Those,
for?
yes.
Okay. And the idea is that it reduces inflammation. What does it do?
Reduces inflammation, so I have an Achilles heel injury,
Uh-huh.
and orthopedic surgeon says it's not to the point where I need to have surgery, but I need to have a procedure, an invasive procedure that he wants to do, of course, costs thousands of dollars. So I spoke with my chiropractor about it, and he's like, no, I can fix that. And I'm on therapy session, probably today will be 6, and it's so much better than anything. So that's what he's doing, and he wants to get that out to help people to prevent non-invasive surgery, pain management, the dependency on pain medications, and
Sure.
that type of thing.
No, that's huge. And will it all? And I'm asking these questions. It may sound medical, but they're to the point. They go to the marketing aspect, to the messaging aspect. So that's why I'm asking this. And will this work for chronic arthritic pain?
Yes, the machine
Okay.
says it will.
That's
I don't have
enormous.
any to try, but he does have another patient who does have arthritic issues,
Yes.
and he's saying it is working well on her so far.
Yeah,
Can you spell it?
that's enormous market.
Can you spell it, please?
Yes, Piezo Wave.
Z as in zebra?
Yeah.
Zebra.
Yeah. As in
Papa, India,
P-I-E-Z.
Echo, Zulu, Oscar, Wave.
as in piezoelectric.
There you go.
Here's what I found.
All right, guys. Let's
Sorry, the
make
geek in
sure
me
we got
comes
it.
out.
Just keep moving on here real quick. I want to get diving in here about 10:30. So if we have anyone, I think Lorray, Jim, Steven, Charlotte, Liren, saw you posting earlier in the chat. Liren doing product name Magic Buttons, magicbuttons.co.uk, custom Chrome extension development. So we got a service selling Magic Buttons as a Chrome extension. Sounds cool. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like you got a really solid starting point for the magic buttons there. So get into any questions you've got otherwise. And no one else is coming off the camera. So without further ado, let's go ahead and kick things off. And we'll start the outline and overview of what we're going to be covering here. And then we'll dig into putting things into action. And then, going through the strategy and execution of the workflow. So I'm going to go ahead first and share my screen. And officially, give me a thumbs up, somebody, to make sure that I'm not sharing my social security number, bank account information.
You're good.
Welcome officially to the MarketSauce Method Masterclass, where we're going to be going from product market blind spots to go-to-market clarity. And in this 3-hour period, we're going to be walking you guys through the course of this masterclass. a specific workflow that we're building that's expansion on the MarketSauce method, the MarketSauce 9000 recipe that is lined out inside of our book. And specifically who this masterclass is for is for those of us that are entrepreneurs, marketers, business strategists that are looking to refine their go-to-market approach. And we'll be covering that through the starting of identifying who that person is that we're going to be taking an idea to market, getting very clear on that segment and how we're going to be positioning our offers and services to that segment, and then crafting the actual campaign strategy that's going to be marketing to those pain points and desires of that market over the course of attracting them, and generating more leads, like in your case, Marty, to booking those calls with you so you can close them, and also be discussing ways to enhance the back end of the marketing system here for continued follow-up and engagement for those that are already customers. Obviously, we're doing this here live on Zoom. Today is August 1st. And throughout the rest of this month, we'll have additional calls set up and support inside of our community as we are putting this workflow into practice, and also, again, sharing wins throughout the process and getting more clarity on who your ideal customers are and markets that you may not even be considering, but could be great fits for getting your ideas to market. And so, essentially, what we're going to be covering today is just a basic overview of the MarketSauce method. Most everyone on this masterclass has already gone through to some level the buyer's brief book or seen our blueprints, what those look like from a product delivery side. Maybe even you've purchased one yourself, or you've created them through our Mentalist GPT. All these resources will be at your disposal throughout this masterclass, and we're going to be discussing how to really focus in on a customer persona that is going to be the target focus for a campaign. We've had a lot of different variations in markets and products that we're selling, from baby boomers to medical spas to business automation for high net worth individuals. And when we look at all of these different services, I think the med spa one is a great example of, okay, you've got tattoo removal, you've got hair restoration or hair removal, right? Each one of those services can have a different target audience for them. And maybe they have a particular market they serve and go deep on that segment. But again, a 22-year-old that got a tattoo that on 6th Street drunk one night that wants it removed might be a different target audience than someone that's maybe in their 40s or 50s and is looking to get a tattoo removed for entirely different reasons. So just one example of how we're going to be working through this is the start of the workflow to understand how and when you want to go deeper or more segmented on your marketing approach, but not to speak to everyone, because your message will just get lost in the ocean. I want to get really crystal clear on who we're going to be targeting and how to utilize AI in helping us with uncovering new segments, and using tools that are available to us, like ChatGPT, like Perplexity is something that has been one of my go-tos for doing just general research on different topics. Reddit is another gold mine that we'll cover briefly throughout this masterclass. But pulling in information from what people are sharing online, to also looking at your own customers that you've worked with and identifying who you want to work more with. And once we know who we're going to be serving within that market, and you've got your product, your offer, your service, ways that you can strategically position that to that market, and then develop that content game plan that's going to address where they're at from an awareness standpoint. So making them aware of who you are, to the consideration, all the way to the conversion, and then following up once people convert into your product, offer, or service, and what that implementation roadmap looks like, so that you or someone on your team can take the contents from one of the outputs here that we're going to show you guys exactly what a finished result will look like, and then we'll show you how to go through and execute each step of the way. And we'll be doing some initial Q&A and wrapping up throughout the latter half of the workshop. So you'll have the ability walking away from here with ways to use AI for new market research insights, new segmentation techniques that you may not be implementing right now, but you'll find effective in inside of this workflow, ways to research with AI, and then again, positioning your offer and creating a go-to-market strategy that's going to get you to effectively testing that offer on the market. This, for those that are competent and capable throughout this process, we're putting together a simple certification that you can utilize and show that you've got a clear understanding of how to put this stuff into action, and ultimately getting more results faster with your clients. All right, so now we are going to make some market sauce together. And to start things out, I mentioned at the beginning of this, when we were just kicking off, creating one of these reports for Shelly, her plans to go to market for the baby boomer. The baby boomer market, specifically for helping them get their idea from concept to customer. And so what we created with Shelly, and what we're going to be walking through how to create yourself, again, whether it's for you or you're exploring a new idea for a product or service, or for a client's product or service that you're working with, is like what is the plan for us to go to market, and how are we going to effectively reach said market? Let me see right here. I want to make sure I didn't screw up this document. Oh, that's why. Cool. So this final report can change in terms of how it's presented and how you ultimately want to deliver this. If you're looking at delivering it as a final product or service for a client, you might add additional context or information at the front that's going to be most useful. Generally, I'll write the introduction to any one of these reports, depending on who I'm working with and what their objectives are, and how this can help them put the contents of the report in action. So just some of this report might look a little different in terms of how the content is presented. But right now, when we're creating these types of reports for different clients that are looking through their ideal customer personas and the whole strategy, we've found that it's helpful to put some key action items up first and foremost, so you can kind of get an idea about what's in the report and how could you start to use it. And because these reports can get pretty extensive in terms of page length, Shelly had several months ago the suggestion to add a table of contents into here. And so we do a lot of these just in Google Documents after we generate the content inside of ChatGPT or Claude, or a number of other tools like Perplexity. And so that gives you the ability, as you're kind of like figuring out what the best presentation of this for your clients, if you're offering it as a service, plenty of room to play around with it there. But what we can see from the outputs here are basically what we're going to be covering are things like the ideal customer persona and the different segments of the campaign that we're going to be ultimately leading people back to. And so where everybody here is going to start is going to be in this ideal customer persona, and figuring out who that person is first, and spending time there before you move on even to next step. The next step from there is, what's the offer that we're putting out here, and to attract people into opening this conversation. For this first version that I was doing with Shelly's input, she has her concept of customer, but she's going to be putting together a series of, I think it's like 20 or 25 blog posts, and we're compiling that into an ebook that she's going to package and give away, or sell for a low ticket price, that will target her target market. And so this is the lead magnet that people would effectively see and raise their hand that they're interested in being, they're a baby boomer woman who wants to start a business. It's pretty direct for who this is targeted for. And so that is the part two of this, is the product or service that we're going to be bringing to market. The third thing we're going to be creating, and these are the things that we wanted to come here today with, so a lot of you already have these ready, are like a brand identity, basically, like what's your brand values? What do you stand for? You may already have a brand book, or a client has a brand creator brief already created. So you would just want to use that information, like, okay, this is the tone of voice that we use. This is what we stand for. Anything specific to a brand that makes you stand out, makes you different, and that you want to be consistent across your content. And once we get that to those three key components, we then move into this module of the conscious marketing matrix. And so what this section is, and why we've decided to continue building this out on a modular format, is because throughout the process, while you could do every single one of these prompts all at once, put it in the chat GPT and let it give you all these results, a lot of times you need to give additional context, refine the initial output, and make sure that from the very get-go that ChatGPT is on the right foot to start. And so that's why we start with who's the main market segment that we're going to be serving here. Here's the product or service. Here's the brand. Okay, now that we know who we're serving, let's go ahead and identify all of the key problems that they're experiencing right now. Because again, if we're targeting a specific segment of the market, in this case, baby boomers, and we want to create content that's speaking to the different problems and pain points that they are currently experiencing. And so going through this process with Shelly, we've identified three, sub problems on an overarching problem. Big problem being they're facing challenges in leveraging their existing experience in starting and running a successful business. Okay. Like this could be a number of different things, and it could be influenced heavily by Shelly's decision to say, I want to actually focus on a different problem that I've discovered in my research. That would go to informing this section here. What this is going to do is create the domino for all of the additional problems that we're going to identify around this overarching problem. So lack of clear business strategy, difficulty building an online presence, balancing personal and professional life. Each one of these sub-problems, we expand and go even further on that with additional issues that they're going to be experiencing. And these, and the way that they're set up inside of this specific workflow would be similar to inside of the buyer blueprint section 1 of the buyer's brief book, when you're identifying a core problem that someone has, and then what are the secondary complaints and the additional things that they're having problems with as a result of that first problem that they're coming to. And again, all marketing is starting to brainstorm with these ideas, identify the pain points, and then we're going to be testing them to see what is the market really resonating most with related to the messaging that I'm providing, and continuing to refine your messaging based on that feedback you're getting. But along with that, we've also got our solutions, how we could be positioning ourselves as the product or service in relation to the problems that they are experiencing. Another section from the problems that we've incorporated into here, and Bruce Fleck was instrumental in the development of this particular section for creating an intent-based keyword recipe that's going to help us with, now that we know who we're targeting, now that we know the problems that they're facing, what are some intent-based keywords that they might have in their vocabulary, or that you could use as call to actions, that will help support getting you in front of and calling to action this particular segment of the market. And so this section, as we'll get into it, is just kind of good for brainstorming a lot of different ideas around competition. Sometimes ChatGPT doesn't, it'll kind of make up competitors in some cases. And so again, all of these sections, like I've mentioned, are modular. They're designed to be gone through step by step, and making sure that you're pulling out the stuff that is actually making sense throughout this when you begin to integrate it into your go-to-market strategy. So moving on through this section, we've got additional clients and communities and groups. And the way that this is set up inside of the workbook that I'll link here just in a few minutes is you can go and copy and paste any number of the prompts that are creating these outputs at any given time. And that's part of when we're going to create, in doing this research in the first place, is just knowing what prompts to use when and where. You don't always need to run this entire report if your goal is just to identify certain sections or certain areas of focus, but want to have a clear understanding of all the components at our disposal here. And again, for something like Reddit, for example, if I wanted to go and do some sub research for people that are, on different forums or groups or places online, and I'm looking to start a business or serve the baby boomer market, seniorpreneurs, I never would have thought about that as that's how way somebody identified. But for someone in Shelly's shoes, that could be a great rabbit hole to explore a bit more. And like, what's the language that people are using to identify with themselves, for one example. Now, of course, as we want to start dialing in the actual content we're going to create, we want to meet people where they're at with where they're at online. And so we've put in, as I don't know if the price point is correct here, Shelly, but if your goal is getting 10 new enrollments into a $1,500 6-week program, and your target market is this, well, we want to identify what are the channels that they're on, where we want to be posting. And in the case of this particular roadmap, LinkedIn is going to be a big factor. So LinkedIn groups, posts, articles, ads, and other forms of content. Email marketing is going to be a big one. So making sure that we are clear on what are the different channels that we actually want to be executing on to effectively reach our target market. What are some of the additional factors that someone that is making this decision might be considering in this regard? And depending on if you're going directly B2B and you're working right with an influencer, like the decision maker inside of a business, that might be the person you want to focus on. You're creating an additional segment for. In some cases, if you are having conversations with people that work inside of an organization, but they're not the final decision maker, there's the scenario where, and maybe you've seen this, Marty, when you're working with business owners or people at small businesses or working with larger teams, you talk with one person, they say, oh, I need to get my buy-in from my manager, or to some degree, when you're working with, there might be 2 or 3 people you need to bring into the mix. And so, there are situations, and not every time you need to do this, but where, oh, maybe this one person needs actually, like, there's multiple people that they're talking to that I want to also incorporate into my campaign, because they're not going to be able to make a decision without somebody else that is, getting on board with it. And so that's something that we're exploring a bit more when it comes to, the larger organization standpoint, but also if you're going directly to the influencer. Let me find out where we're going. Timeline and phasing. There we go. Yeah. So key demographics, psychographics, timeline and phrasing. Again, as we move down this particular workflow, because this is building off of the target audience and the business objectives that we're giving it, we're moving into kind of like phasing things out into, and usually it's like a 90-day period that we've been training it with these prompts. But if you just want to do like 30-day content calendars, you can certainly just do that. So kind of phasing out, how would you approach structuring a campaign, and like, what's the timeline that you'd want to implement it? And then moving into the actual customer journey, what kind of content are we going to be creating, and what are they facing at the different stages? So at the awareness stage versus, the consideration stage, and what are the channels we want to be creating content on? And so that is where, as you generate some content, and I'm just finding that sometimes some of the outputs be a little bit redundant as we're like going down more and more. But part of this is you're working inside of the GPT is the conversational aspect of AI and getting it to focus, and then pulling out the things that you want to go either deep on or go a little bit wider. And so as we built this one out inside of a chat GPT thread, it is referencing all the content above. And so it's keeping in line by the time that we've, awareness, consideration, and decision, what is like some of the final concerns in this case that our ICP, our ideal customer persona, might have. What's the value proposition that we want to highlight there? And then, maybe some content ideas. And so if someone's on the edge, but they've already seen Shelly's content, they've already been considering, that maybe the final decision stage is just hop on a call and like, let's review, let's have a free consultation. Maybe it's sending them through an email to a case study that you've created. And then from that case study, you're booking a call, or you're inviting them to a program. And a lot of that stuff would just be automated from your posting to the emails that you're sending on a regular basis. And so, in the summary, we've got the awareness, consideration, and conversion. And then how do we put that into action for the actual content challenge, the channel strategy? And so, and I think you would agree with this. I'm assuming Shelly, because we've had this conversation about where like the content lives on your website, but like ultimately throughout each stage of this, you need to identify, like, first and foremost, like, are these the channels that make sense for me to market given what I know about my audience? If I'm marketing to, 20-year-olds and my market is, some business to consumer kind of skincare product, TikTok might be my primary channel for something along those lines. In this case, website, email, LinkedIn, I would say that those are pretty solid starters. Like from, just knowing the baby boomer market is more than likely more active on Facebook. Then you have things like YouTube, webinars, and podcasts, which, when you mentioned the podcast that you're going to be doing, Shelly, and what channels are you actually going to implement here? That was where you would just refine that channel prioritization. This is what my focus is going to be. And then again, creating any of the, the content, the frequency for how you're going to be posting all of the stuff and how you're going to be scheduling it out on to, the market. And so, with any, with any marketing campaign, like there are certain metrics that you're going to want to track, that you're going to want to identify and keep tabs on as you're executing a campaign. Things like email open rates are like one metric to track among many when you're talking about email marketing, but each one of these channels that you're on is going to have certain metrics that you're going to want to, make sure that you are at least keeping an eye on, whether it's people that are engaging and commenting with specific posts, to people that are opting into your email list on a regular basis, to booking a call. And so just understanding the metrics that are going to matter for your channel and what you're going to be using to track and measure success from. Obviously, inside of this channels, and a lot of this is like giving like what everything that would need to be gone into here. How much time are you going to be spending now each week? And whether it's you, whether it's an assistant on your team or someone that is managing, this process, there's certain time that needs to be allocated to getting all of this stuff done, which should not be overlooked. But a lot of this stuff as well, 5 hours a week on email could be, 1 hour, depending on, how much content you're creating and how much you're using AI in the process and otherwise. So now when we get down to the final stages of this, this front end content strategy is a 90-day game plan in this case. And so we've set themes for each month that kind of like explain the theme and the focus for that month. So month one is in this case, foundations of entrepreneurship, setting the groundwork for, kind of the awareness stage of like attracting this market in Shelly's case. And then building out those themes. Of course, you could, adjust and modify this as it made sense for your brand and business. And, again, just kind of like walking through every week, every day, every type of content that you could be posting. And again, this is all to keep things on track when it comes to actually scheduling and putting in a content calendar where you're going to be posting things out. And I know there's tons of different content calendar apps out there. Some of them are free. Some of them are very low priced. You could probably pay a lot of money for some, I'd imagine, if you have a larger team and a lot of seats. But relatively, cost effective to, find one of those scheduling tools at least to get content planned and prepped out there. And so, now again, it's kind of summarizing everything with the content objectives by the end of it. And the way that the prompts are set up, as you guys go through here, you'll be able to make copies of the workbook, and you'll be able to upgrade or modify or change any of the prompts that you'd like yourself. But mapping everything out to where here's what it would actually look like on a daily, a weekly, a monthly basis. What's the core message? What's the channel? What's the type of content I'm going to be posting? This is really where we get to kind of the tail end of like, now that we've done the research on the audience, now that we know what segment we're creating campaigns for, and now what we've, got our brand, our product, our service, our content map, this is what it would look like in terms of like on a daily basis, like actually putting something like this stuff out there. Of course, you could batch content. You could do a whole month in a day or two, or you could, every week have a certain time per week that you create the content for that week. Depending on your workflow and how you go about creating content or who's going to be creating the content. So this kind of gives us like a 90-day roadmap of how to put into action throughout the different stages of the front end customer journey, from awareness to consideration to decision. What kind of content you can create inside of this format. And so like steps from here, create the content. And so this part, when it comes to the content creation, is where I stopped on Shelly's. And this is kind of where the handoff is between, now you got to create the content, and now we're going to be working with AI in this case to actually produce it, which is a different mode of operating than the planning stage of things. And as you're creating and producing the content, obviously people are going to start to engage with you, or that's the goal. You're going to open up conversations. People are going to enroll into your program. And then that's where the back end aspect of the marketing is going to come into place. And so once we have like a content map and otherwise, we can utilize tools like ChatGPT and Claude. Hey, I want to use an AIDA framework to give me X, Y, or Z content based on this particular problem or goal that we're going towards. And then the AI can help us with creating that content as well. And so these being the outputs of what we're going to be putting into action today are a result of the inputs, which I'm going to share now inside of our chat so you guys can grab and make a copy of this document, which will just be your handy dandy notebook or your workbook that will be here as a resource to follow along all the different stages that we're going to be going through as we execute the contents in the GPT. This workbook, as well as the buyer's brief book for context to the MarketSauce method, are created inside of the GPT. That all of those are linked here in the key resources. But basically, what we just mapped out and went through with Shelly is this roadmap right here that for getting things from, the idea to who that person is, right? The product, service, branding, creating that marketing matrix, defining the objectives, front-end marketing, channels, content planner, and then now going to the actual content creation, which pushes us into, as people go through the conversion on the front end, now behind the back end and the follow-up here. And so this table of contents is going to outline all the different sections and the modules and what pages those are on. And while you can go and you can do all of these different prompts that we've outlined in here throughout each stage of this workflow, the go-to-market game changer recipe, you can use all of these prompts directly once you've given your product, your service, your branding information inside of a new ChatGPT thread, inside of a new Claude thread. I wouldn't recommend using Perplexity for like executing each one of these, just because it's not designed for these types of outputs. You could probably explore using, I think, is it Copilot at Microsoft is another one, and Gemini are probably potential uses in terms of AI tools. We just don't have time to demonstrate all of them on where we're going right now. But basically, and how this ties back into what we teach with the MarketSauce method inside of the buyer's brief book, is that this is all an iterative process. And as your business evolves and as your market evolves, you're going to continue to adapt and refine your strategies based on who you're talking to and what problems they are experiencing and how you can help solve them in a unique and different way. And so the goal with how we're going to be executing each stage of this roadmap is going to be to ensure that what we're providing as solutions and content are directly linked to the specific problems that are of the ideal customer profile that we've identified. maintaining a consistent high quality content here. And again, AI, sometimes the content can just sound like AI. I'm a big fan of using it for the brainstorming and the outlining of frameworks. And then that's where a lot of the collaboration process with AI comes, whether it's you filming something based on an idea and an outline, or you're speaking it out and then, adding your own tone and voice to it. If you don't like put real effort into like the actual content you're creating too, I think that's a big area to kind of make or break the initiatives here as well. If we get to the very end of this, you have your outline, make this content, and then you put out content that just sounds like AI wrote it, and it doesn't really sound like it's coming from your brand, or you haven't put on, like getting to that content creation spot is still where, like, I think that's where a lot of time to shine goes, especially when people are getting more and more used to just AI content that's out there. It's like, how are you going to like actually put your own spin on it, or the person or partner that you're working with to create the content that's going to stand out? But getting to that point to know what content to produce is a big goal for getting through this workflow and becoming more effective and achieving those goals faster. And so, like, whether your goal is filling 10 people up to a 6-week program that you're selling at $1,500 a ticket, or whether it's, getting, 10 people a week to book a strategy or a discovery call with you to see if they'd be a good fit for your product, service, or business, whatever that objective is and who we're going to be targeting for that, this is going to help us with getting you to the point where you know what to say and how to say it and who you're saying it to specifically. So we're going to start with module 1. But before I dig into here, I want to put a quick pause. Is there any questions? Is everyone kind of on the same page with where we're going at from the start of this and what we're going to be ending with the content calendar? Or is anyone confused as to where we're at right now? Just to make sure that we're all on the same page before we begin.
Darby, Roger here. So is your approach here going to be watch and learn, or do you want us actually putting the prompts in for our particular, campaign that we're trying to work on?
I would like it to be see how I'm going about the process, but have your target market that you're going to be working with and have any of the company product information handy so that you could just have another tab open and run the prompts or the GPT inside of that workflow.
Okay.
As part of this is, like, again, watch, learn, and then go and put it into action.
I have a question, a non-technical question.
Yep.
Are we gonna take a break? I need to grab something to eat. Hit the ladies' room. Are we taking a break?
Yeah, well, why don't we take like a quick 5-minute break before we dive
That'd
in?
be awesome.
And once we do that, we're going to be going through. I don't need to hop off right now, but if anyone that does need to take a break, we'll give a second to kind of make sure we can go around for the questions, and then we'll at 11:05 we'll dive right into module 1 and starting to put that part into action.
Okay, I'm gonna fly.
Right. Anything else from anyone here in terms of where we're at in the process and kind of what the goal is that we're going to be building towards? Bruce?
Yeah, just a quick question. What was the, I'm sorry, I had to step away for a minute. What was the MarketSauce game changer, the role that we're going to be using that here? I just saw it in the chat.
I just pasted in the chat the game changer, that MarketSauce game changer GPT. And so what this GPT has is the entire workbook that I was just showing on my screen.
Oh, okay.
And let me share that here. So that GPT is,
yeah, I'm looking at it. Okay.
behind the scenes that in its knowledge base is this workbook. So it's going to have all of the user prompts and instructions in the checklist. And the checkpoints are really important here because, again, if you just take your hands off the wheel, AI, take me to where you want to take me with this, you could end up in a very wrong direction very quickly, and then have to reset and kind of move back and start again. And so again, as we're going through this process, might take you a little bit longer to go through each step of it the first time or the first few times. But again, with this, the way we approach this with the MarketSauce method is to be able to take those segments or those insights or the new information and be able to run this and refine it to continue to improve, again, the campaigns that we're creating and the language we're using. So all of this meaning all of this all the way down to the end of the recipe right now is baked into the Game Changer as well as the Buyer's Brief books for additional context if we want to focus in on anything specifically about identifying the customer or otherwise. And so
you built in so that the checkpoints will pause after that module and ask for feedback before moving on.
That's how it's designed to.
Yeah, perfect.
And
I've been doing that in all my prompt guides, so I like that.
And so if it doesn't for any reason, let me know. Again, AI sometimes just AIs, and you gotta.
Oh, I know.
Turn that into a T-shirt or something. But but that's why I wanted to make sure we had this workbook and this guide on one side. That if you're, hey, what is the next prompt that I want to use here? What is the next way that I want to go with this? Rather than having to go through, type out the prompt or copy and paste it every single time. The GPT is helping us kind of, speed up some of that process. And much of our goal with getting it refined out this way inside of a GPT is to be able to, as we're building out the MarketSauce portal, and once we have the chat interface capabilities in there, that'll just kind of streamline that. What you're doing here is what we're building into MarketSauce directly, and we're going to be using GPT 4.0 or Claude 3.5 Sonnet as we get that tool ready to go. And pretty much everyone here has at least ChatGPT 4.0. If not,
I think that infographic is very nice.
Claude made it. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, Claude made it. Nice.
Yeah, Claude has been very helpful with creating these infographics and kind of mind maps around workflows. So let me see. We'll give Shelly. We'll give about 30 seconds, and then we'll start diving into this. And so, basically, where we want to start, outside of having an idea where the key resources are, we've got the book, and a lot of you have either created a MarketSauce. I'm going to put this actually as an additional resource here. MarketSauce Mentalist. So the Mentalist is, I think, just the Buyer's Brief book. I don't remember if I made any additional edits to it. But the Mentalist GPT would be a way to focus on just creating your ideal customer persona. And so if you just want to create a blueprint and get super, super, super clear on who that is, then that's going to be a more in-depth workflow than saying you already had a blueprint. You've already spent the time crafting it and doing the research and building that out. Like, then we can just bring that information directly in here to the first module for the customer persona. So, all right, it's been 5 minutes. Let's go ahead and dive on in. So now that we've got an understanding of how this process is going to work and why it's module, we're going to start with the user input, right? So like, ideally, you've got some real world information or something of that nature that you're bringing to the table that you want to start creating this content around. So inside of the Game Changer workflow, that is where you would then upload this information, whether you have it in a like in a file specifically, or an existing blueprint, or a content, or otherwise. And so I'm just going to give an example as we're going through this from someone, or let's do this. Let's do the med spa tattoo removal, if you're all right with that being an example. It was Roger, right? It was yours?
Oh, yes.
Cool. So
before you go on this MarketSauce Game Changer GPT,
yep,
I think you talked about while I was away. How do I get to that?
Game Changer GPT, check the chat. and
Okay.
check the key resources in the key resources section of the workbook.
Okay.
So I'm going to paste that in the chat again, and it'll, wherever it is around this video, whenever this video is pasted, it'll be right around here. So just for example, in this first section, everyone open up the MarketSauce Game Changer, and it will just say like how you would build on this if you were to come in it with minimal information, but you knew like generally who you wanted to work with. My ideal customer persona is somebody that has tattoos that wants them to get removed. My business is a med spa, and so we offer tattoo removal for that person. Very, very brief example, but to show you how it's going to ask you these questions to kind of give you some more of these guides about what you want to be introducing here. And so, and as we're going through this process, like Roger, your mission is to get clear on like giving this type of information. And so once you see this back based on what you know about this market, can you describe them like at least some basic information that like that you know from your client that you'd want to be incorporating here?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a avatar for that customer. I mean, pretty in depth.
Cool. Do you have that in a Google document?
Word document, but yeah.
Cool. So I would just go ahead and upload that into the chat file and let it take that information and run it like from analyze that Word document and then see what it gives you out as a result there.
Do you want me to send it to you? Or?
If you don't mind, if you have it handy,
Yeah.
just shoot me an email and I'll show you guys just kind of like how, again, you could have multiple clients that have different products or services or otherwise. And so if we're just picking one right now, we want to make sure that we have that information and can go ahead and apply it here in that first modular phase.
Yeah, give me just a second here.
And please send it to the Darby at Gen AI University.
Okay. Okay. Wait just a second.
While he's doing that, has everyone else opened up the GPT and started to add your initial target audience information? If anyone is having trouble with the GPT, please let me know as well.
Darby, can this ICP be generated from the MarketSauce 9000?
Yes.
Okay. My chat GPT's gone wonky.
Yeah, so and that's why I wanted to include the book manuscript as a resource here too. So if you're running into issues with who this market might be, and you're just maybe chat GPT is and the GPT is not working, if you wanted this full to create the full blueprint, which is what would dial in that first stage for you, you'd go to section 2 of the buyer's brief book, or part 2, sorry, not the input output examples, but the MarketSauce 9000 section. And you would run the recipe from up here. So Roger, did you send that over? I see you did.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah, you would just take this information and you would start to build out. Again, you would want to provide it your context, but then this GPT also has that book's recipe inside of it. But if you're having trouble, John, getting access to it, then maybe an alternate route for you.
Yeah. Okay. No, I've already got it. Yeah.
So I've got Roger's information here, and so as you can see, you're getting prompted. Okay, give us this information, yada, yada, yada. Like, I need somewhere to start, says the GPT. So, okay. Like, I'm going to give you the information. Customer avatar for tattoo removal. Say here you go. And so now it's going to analyze the document based on the comprehensive profile, Alex Johnson, demographics. And so from Roger, obviously this is the point where the human in the driver's seat here is analyzing the outputs, confirming whether it's on the right track or it needs to be kind of modified or we need to run it again. I haven't even looked at the document you sent directly. I do see the name Alex Johnson is on there. And so it's kind of relaying exactly the information that I gave it. You know, we see the challenges and pain points. So tattoos no longer represent the current identity, concerns about tattoo removal process, overwhelming of the information, goals and aspirations, and then things like preferred marketing channels, decision-making factors, and a day in the life. And so the questions now for Roger or you or whoever is going through this process, right? What aspects, like identify that? Are there any elements in here that aren't a good fit, or is there any missing information that I wanted to figure out of this? And so like based on, you know, some of the initial outputs, Roger, does this look in line with what you've seen for your experience? Does it seem like
Yeah, a
the
lot of
goals or anything
that,
is off?
a lot of that was in that document I
Mhm.
sent. So it kind of regurgitated that
Cool.
to us. Yeah. But
Yeah. And there's not a problem with it regurgitating the content that you're providing it if you've done your research and organized that up front. Honestly, a lot of the first few steps of this is just getting the right information that you already have at your disposal and
Yeah.
identifying which campaign, because like the alternative from tattoo removal was like they have another product or service called hair restoration. Same company, totally different product or service. And so, you know, for this campaign, we want to make sure that we have those blinders on for our focus and that this is exactly who we're going to be targeting.
right.
So now that I know that, okay, cool, ChatGPT knows this information now about my target audience, the next step that I'm going to move to is, as we can see here in the go-to-market roadmap, is now the product or service information. And so I'm looking at your document. Or do you have a separate document, Roger, that has
Yeah.
more
Hold on.
details just on the product or service?
Yeah. Well, I generated this.
Or even a link to a website that has the details for what the company does?
Let me throw this in the chat here and maybe you can just copy it from there.
Okay. And to clarify, Ray, I see your question here.
I generated this as a promotional statement for tattoo removal. Maybe
Great.
that'll work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That should work. And so just to clarify, when we're going into the first module here and starting to build out this, this whole workflow, the Ray is asking when we would use the following GPTs: MarketSauce 9000, Mentalist, and the Game Changer. So for the Mentalist, if we're really trying to get clear on like who is the segment that we're working for in the first place, the Mentalist is trained on this book, The Buyer's Brief, which means like it specifically focused on the book. And so if you're not quite ready to go through the entire campaign, and you just want to get super clear on the exact person that you're going to be targeting here, and that's where we would use the term the blueprint for who we're going to be creating the campaign around. That is where we want to use the MarketSauce 9000 recipe that's inside of this book. Once you know who your target audience is going to be, and you've got at least somewhat of a blueprint, take that blueprint and that information, like Roger did here with the kind of like the initial document for his customer avatar, and then we're going to move that into the Game Changer GPT. And so while the Game Changer has information about the book and the MarketSauce method, I've just found it to be better if you have that blueprint first, bring that to the table, and then bring in information about your product or service, and then any information about your brand. And so if you have any brand guidelines, Roger, while I'm running this section, if you want to make sure that you just have those handy. But basically from phase 1 of the output is that ideal customer profile. So we've got that information here. And now I'm going to say, after I've reviewed the checkpoints, okay, looks good. Now the next module for my product. And I'm going to give information about my product here. And so rather than just opening up a new GPT and copying and pasting this prompt directly into it, I've provided my detailed product information that Roger provided in this case, and ChatGPT is answering these questions based on that product that I provided it. So you can see the output here: product service for Regen Laser, rediscover your skin's natural beauty, executive summary. And a lot of this content could help you with refining your message, and you could find other use cases for it. I'm happy to share with you the link to this chat afterwards, Roger, and anyone else that we work with on this. We got like key features. So advanced PicoSure laser surgery or technology. Can't talk today. Breaks down to ink, personalized treatment plans, highly trained specialists, state-of-the-art facility. So like this is what our service is, right? I want to make sure that ChatGPT understands this is the service that we're creating. This is the content and the primary benefits, right? Efficient and safe, confidence boosting, professional, polished appearance, and informed and reassured decision making. So, looking to make sure here, pricing structure, I don't have that information, I guess, on hand. And so I'm sure they have like different tiers that they offer. Roger, the question for where we want to be creating this initial campaign for is, are we driving them to a free consultation? Do you know what it costs per session? Like, what do you want to be selling here for people that are seeing you online and on your email address to go?
Yeah, with any of these services, it's pretty much custom built. So we're driving them to a free consultation on whatever, we're doing here. So
a little bit more context. It's always good to provide. Our services are custom built. So we want to drive people or potential customers to a free consultation.
Right.
And so maybe you guys have noticed this or not with ChatGPT. If you give it an instruction, sometimes it'll rewrite the entirety of what it just wrote out right now. Sometimes it can be a little bit more than I wanted it to do. Sometimes you can give it a little bit more specific instruction to add in there. Just something to note that a few weeks ago, it wasn't doing the same sort of outputs right here. And so sometimes it does kind of adjust how it produces the output. But ultimately what I want is, to make sure that at least it knows that this is the information that I'm providing it as we're moving along this thread. And again, accuracy, does this represent the product? Completeness, are there any features that we want to, anything that's not being represented here? So as the product, service, or marketer in this situation, we got to provide that input to the AI, or else it's not going to know where to focus before we move on to the next step. Assuming
Sorry,
this all
I did
looks
send-
on point, or did you send something?
I sent you another email with, that's kind of the company avatar, the voice.
Okay, cool.
Company.
Perfect. All right, so now that's great. So we've got our ideal customer persona locked in. We've got the product or service that we're selling here, which is a free consultation to a custom deal. And now we've got what Roger is calling a company avatar that is, basically the avatar of the company that we want to make sure that it understands for the branding. And so I'm going to take the content that you just gave me, Roger, and now that I've got my ICP, customer persona, I've got my product or service lined up. Now I'm just going to go and add the branding right here. And so this next module is going to basically, this, describe the personality and values that you want your brand to embody. And so I'm going to take what Roger just sent me, inside of my game changer GPT. Okay, great, looks good. Now on to the next module. And I'm going to paste it in here so we can see, say brand name. I'm just going to change the brand to background so that the GPT doesn't get confused that I'm giving it like maybe 2 different avatars here. Say brand personality and brand appearance, brand tone, brand voice, and brand core values. So now I'm adding in like the brand background and basic information for Regen Laser. We got a personality, brand background, making sure that we're giving this ChatGPT thread all of this context to align it and understand, where's our brand's position. I don't know. I'm trying to see like what you sent over directly, Roger, versus like what it's putting out, but it's kind of like taking what you gave it and aligning it with the structure that we've currently got built into this framework. If you have your own branding and own style guides and own way of doing these types of things and would like, again, got the document for this workbook, this section, again, why it's modular, you could go and replace and add and modify things here and kind of curate and build your own if you have your own workflow or process in here. And so like if you have specific things that you want for all of your clients to do, this is where you would add your own branding instructions for how you want something to come out and be relayed here. But you got brand positioning, brand values, archetype, your brand star, tone of voice, and visual identity. Again, to make sure that your content is, when you are creating visuals, which we won't get into that inside of this workflow. But ChatGPT can't help with making images, and I'm sure AI is going to be more and more effective at the actual visual side of things as we continue to learn more about how these tools grow and operate. But we can see now that we've got the brand voice, the style, the brand star, checkpoints, again, put the ball back in your court, Roger. Does this look like it identifies with what you provided? Is there anything additional in context that you'd want to provide? Basically, is this in alignment with how you want your, like the content and the rest of what we're creating to make sure that it's understanding of who the brand is? To me, it seems like it's pretty much on point with what you sent me.
Yeah.
And so, from here, I'll say like, give it the check mark, say, okay, cool. Now we're done with the third module. And, for demonstration purposes, we're walking through this, we're getting through everything here and, lining things up. But if we wanted to run for the same client, if Roger wanted to target someone for hair removal on another campaign and see that, we would just simply open up a new Game Changer GPT, add the information about that target persona that we want, and then give it the same, the product and service information, and even use the same brand information that we just gave, because the brand is going to be the same. And so like, no matter really where you're at here, it's always going to reset with who the person you're talking to. Brand will remain the same in a lot of cases, but then the product or service that you're selling to, again, it's going to, vary depending on, the band, the business, and the company. But now that we've got these 3 sections here all set up, we want to move on to the conscious marketing matrix. So getting inside the mind of our market by understanding content that is going on in their head. So I'm going to say, okay, great. Next module now. Again, if you could go and copy and paste the prompt from the document for that module 4 in, but again, with this GPT, it's already set up in it. And so as long as you're following the modular approach, it should stay on track. So we hear now, conscious marketing matrix. What's the overarching problem like we talked about? Well, main problem is they regret and discomfort from tattoos that don't longer represent their current identity, affecting their confidence and professional appearance, right? So now we're moving down, like what are all the problems that we're gonna like initially like want to create content for and speak to inside of our marketing message. So sub-problems concerned about the removal process, professional and social image affecting unwanted tattoos, overwhelmed from excessive information. and unclear guidance on tattoo removal. And so within each of these subproblems, concerns about the removal process, fear of pain and side effects, concerned about the cost of investment value, anxiety about the time commitment and recovery process, right? So things that as I'm reading and reviewing this, again, making sure one, that like this sounds like it's going in the right direction. It's not going off the rails and starting to talk about, retiring to Alaska to be a sheep farmer or anything ridiculous like that. But, again, kind of making sure the AI is staying in the right track. It's identifying problems that are stemming from our ideal customer persona and aligning with that before we move on to the next stage, and even mapping out what content we're going to create that's going to address all of these issues inside of our marketing message. And so as you see, now we go down to the subproblems. Well, if someone has a concern about the tattoo removal process, well, what are different solutions we can provide around that? Well, maybe it's, explanations around how the process actually works, transparent pricing, share pace and testimonials, all things that we're going to want to incorporate inside of a campaign. They're going to speak to all of the pain points that are driving, customers' buying decisions. And is anything standing out here to you, Roger, as you read this that like looks untrue?
Yeah.
Or
No,
does
it
it look
looks,
pretty much?
Yeah, it looks on target. Yeah. A lot of the, yeah.
Awesome. And as this outputs some, initial content, like ideas, right? And so again, in this phase of the campaign, we're still kind of like brainstorming, what are we going to be creating content around, getting some ideas off the board from ChatGPT in this case. And, looking at, okay, cool. Well, if these are content ideas, well, obviously we're going to need to create that content at some point. When is that content going to be produced? But we want to make sure that one, that this is representing, the core challenges faced by our customer in this instance. Sounds like it's on, it is representing that. And so that's a good box to check. Are the subproblems specifically, like talking to the issues that they're facing, alignment and content ideas. And, as you're doing maybe even customer interviews, for example, Roger, if you talk to 5 customers on the phone after they've gone through or before the process and like what their experience was, you'll learn a lot about maybe some of the additional pain points that weren't included in here that you want to go and then refine. And so, again, like while starting with AI is great for getting the ball rolling, I don't think anything is going to beat actual customer interview and getting that feedback from people that are going through the process to make sure that you are aligning your message with the problems that they are having as a part of the validation and that point. And
so is this a point where you would insert that? In other words, here was additional concerns that, or here's additional feedback that we got from a recent customer. Would you just insert that as additional, content? Or are you talking about inserting that in the final document?
a lot of that content, if I'm taking an initial approach at it, would be, I would take that information and create a blueprint around like that person first. And so that would actually kind of start with module 1. But
Okay.
here you could also influence where you're at in this process to say like, hey, I know this person did say this, or this is some additional information. We could add that in to this section of the module, but again, while we want to start with like the ICP at the very beginning for the blueprint, ideally you have that information from the start, and then that's already
Okay.
kind of like integrated at the very beginning. But if you did, let's say like, okay, well, this is great. Well, actually the biggest problem that my customers have experienced is X, Y, or Z. Well, that number one problem that, let me pull it back up to here. Like the overarching problem of like who they are, regret and discomfort with the tattoos. I think I saw it up here, which is why like I know that like this is where it's pulling it from. Or I think it is. Let me see.
Mhm.
Let me see. I thought I saw that somewhere in your document. Number one goal. Yeah, so I mean, it probably like took that number one pain point based on like, okay, here's some of the top pain points or otherwise that we'd want to create something around. But if it's pinpointing the overarching goal is this, then like I would want to come in and direct it. Like this is the number one pain point I really want to be focusing on out of all of these. And so from your experience with your client, Roger, is any one of these the top challenge that you've seen? Is it an identity? Is it overwhelmed by information that you see? Or can you speak to any one of these in particular?
I really don't know. A lot of this was generated by AI in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, I had it create these avatars, and then I went in and edited it. It all made sense, okay, and I removed anything that wasn't. So this was pretty accurate to begin with, but I don't know which one is primary, secondary, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Right. And I think like right now, while you're still like coming up with the initial avatar with AI, and then you're going to have more of these conversations, just let that be the point of like, where in that feedback loop do you hear like, hey, like, what's the number one challenge, right? That you are like, why right now, basically. And if you start to hear some of that feedback, like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe we need to refine our content strategy. Cause like every one of our customers is like having an identity crisis because they're in their 40s and they no longer want their tattoos, or,
Yeah, one of them was, and this is from one of the owners of the company, said, and we did write one blog post on this already, is, does tattoo removal cause scarring? And so that was a concern. I didn't see that come up here. I don't know, but I didn't read through everything here, but that was like a primary concern people are worried about,
So that's a great example about like a focus on like what's the like number one problem that someone is having with this that we might want to like stem everything from, is like, and that iteration here could look as simple as, I'm gonna use voice dictation. We've actually found the number one problem our customers experience in terms of their main question is concerns about the tattoo removal process and how it leaves scarring after the process. Let's update the marketing matrix with that being the number one problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I can see how you can just, create a number of approaches here, depending on, what your focus is, and changing the number one reason multiple times and getting different pathways, right? That you could take. Yeah.
Yeah. And, again, like with a lot of this process is about like figuring out really what's the number one thing that, is either stopping or holding people back, or like, how are you addressing this in your language as well? And so like, if this was something that you realized was a theme and or pattern, and like, this would be a good spot to maybe even do research on Reddit and other places online where like, what are questions that people are asking themselves, right? About, the tattoo removal process, will go into just informing the content that you could then add into here to refine this step of the process and, move on again. But like for this stage, we say like, okay, cool. Like regain your confidence, how it can transform your life, before and after photos. And so like focusing around, fear of scarring and skin damage post removal, like there's a massive market of people that like, that's their number one thing. And if like, that's, a huge value proposition for you guys that, helps you stand out, then something to explore, but also something to just experiment with.
Right.
So, once you are locked in on that number one big problem, and then how you're going to be addressing the different sub problems based on that in the marketing matrix, again, refining now in the next stage is like confirming what's the actual objective of like the content that we're going to be creating based on where we're at right now in this journey. But
Can I stop you for a second, Darby?
Go ahead.
So what I'm struggling with as I sit and listen is that for me, I don't see enough why someone would want to remove. Why, right? If we don't know what they want, like could be that they've learned more about how tattoos affect your health, gets in the bloodstream. While they're trying to manage the ink, there are other things that happen to the immune system. I happen to have read a lot about this. So what are their real concerns? It's not just because they made it, it's not enough strong enough to say they made a decision when they were younger and now they want clearer skin. It's not enough why. You know, is it a health concern? Is it a professional concern? Like, what's changed? So I think we're more focused on that's what's missing in this for me in this approach. I don't really understand why. Make a big commitment, a ton of money, you have your body covered, but why do you now want to get it off? If we don't figure out the why and what they want, then I don't think the campaign can be accurate.
Wasn't that addressed up higher, Darby? I thought.
I'm
the
listening.
wife-
I didn't see it. I could be wrong, certainly. But just having rejuvenated skin, it's two different things. Why do they want the tattoos removed? And what are their concerns about removing them? Those are two different avenues.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up, Shelly. And as we're like approaching this process, this is all going to start with the who at the beginning, and like what information are we starting with at the beginning. Roger, in this case, provided the basic customer overview here at the front. So kind of like what information are we providing up here at the beginning based on what Roger's bringing to the table. And so like this why that Roger, as he's creating this campaign, you know, may find needing to create or like refine this initial person that they're targeting, because 5 different people might have different ultimate goals that are driving their decision-making process in here.
Yeah, and
I'm
that's
curious.
yeah, that may involve a totally different approach. In other words, a professional might want it removed because of appearance. Another person might want it removed because they want a new tattoo in place of that. They're tired of the old one. So there's another one might because of health reasons. So those could all be different pathways in and of themselves, it seems like.
And I think Liren makes a good point in the comments of like religious shame, change of identity.
So,
right.
Yep.
Darby, I just put into Copilot, what are the reasons someone might want to remove a tattoo? Regret. This is great right here. Tattoo no longer holds the same meaning or appeal as it once did. That's a great mind change, right? Professional reasons. Certain jobs or career paths may have restrictions on visible tattoos. Personal changes, life changes, such as ending a relationship, can make a tattoo feel like an unwanted reminder. Aesthetics, the tattoo may have faded, blurred, or simply doesn't look as good as it did. Health concerns, some people experience allergic reactions or other skin issues. So, and then the second part is okay, you want, these are the reasons you want, and then the other is, what does that process look like? And so if you change it into a 15-word sentence, you'd say, we work with individuals, it shouldn't even be individuals, who want to remove tattoos and feel excited, healthier, something on the other end. But one is who, one is want, and what's the outcome they get by working with you. And that's the only thing that's missing for me here.
Well, let's take that and then let's like go through the process for like, how would we focus on that type of problem specifically based on their goal? Because I think like even just like you bringing that up, to me, there's 10 different markets in there that could be home runs. And again, if we're starting with just this first iteration, which, and there's no problem with starting here like you did, Roger, with like an AI totally generated one, but Alex is he religious? Is he feeling like shame because of it? And he just wants to be accepted by his friend group for a tattoo that he got for whatever, or is it an aesthetic thing like we're saying, or otherwise, before we go and create all the content for this campaign or and anything, like we want to make sure that like, is that the focus of where we want to be heading, like in this initial case? And so like Shelly, you brought up like multiple different like reasons why somebody might want to do it. Like, is there one on there that we would want to say like, oh, well, if I am this company that we help people like do this, like the service is going to remain the same, but it's like the message that they're going to create their marketing around for this type of person. Do we want to focus a campaign around someone who it's like a religious thing, or they're having a complete change of identity, or they simply want to have new tattoos to replace the old ones? Like,
Yeah, we did kind of supply that. It says Alex got several tattoos in her early 20s that she felt represented her identity at the time. However, as she's matured and her career has evolved, she finds that these tattoos no longer represent who she is today. They've become a source of regret and discomfort, especially in professional settings and social situations where she prefers a more polished appearance. So we provided that context there of the why.
Yeah,
She's
I
also,
like that. Did you ever do any market research for any percentage of people? How many are we talking about? Hundreds, thousands? Do you have any idea about how many people want to remove their tattoos?
well,
What is
this
the
guy,
market demand?
this guy built this business around his 3 tattoo and piercing stores that he has. So after, running, it kind of became a business because of that need generated by his other customers wanting to change things, wanting to redo, for whatever reason. But so I don't know numbers wise, but he's got a good business going doing that. But it's just part of the med spa business too. I mean, they do, facial hair removal, hair restoration, Botox, they do all. So it's just a portion of their business, but. So I would say this customer avatar we supplied, Darby, is focused on somebody that wants to improve their professional appearance. That's
So
where this one is going.
I think that is the case, like of identifying what's the number one thing they want here, like going to improve their professional appearance. Like if that's the case that we want to help them achieve that goal first and foremost, like let's clarify that. And then as we're refining this so that we make sure that that's where the focus of this campaign is going to go once we've identified that. And again, like there's nothing wrong that we just went through 4 modules and then realized that maybe we need to get a little bit more clear on like that version of it first and make sure that the problems are strictly around professional appearance versus someone that's having a religious crisis with their family or something like that is going to be a totally different type of campaign that we'd be going about.
And I threw you off track when I said the scarring. We should, that really wasn't the reason for this avatar's, it wasn't her reason to remove the tattoo. It was professional reasons. So.
And I just looked it up. It says approximately 23% of Americans plan to have at least one tattoo removed in the future. This indicates that nearly 1 in 4 people are considering removing their tattoos. So for me, we need things like that because you're tapping into prospects that really maybe haven't thought about removing their tattoos, but now we're giving them reasons to think about it. That's what creates a prospect. Gee, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, it's faded. Or, my skin is always itchy. Or I don't want to take my shirt off at the golf course. But we have to give them real life scenarios that make them think, yeah, that is how I feel. Right? So I think that case study was great.
Yeah, and then if we want to go back through and refine the approach to get to that point, and again, like it's not just letting GPT take the reins and build out the whole campaign, and then all of a sudden it was going 1,000 miles in the wrong direction. And so if the goal is to focus us in on moving her a pain-free manner, regain confidence in her professionalism without the burden of an outdated tattoo, like if this is a good number one goal that we want to focus it on and make sure that they want to improve their professional appearance, I want to make sure that that is where this thread is going to be building on for the additional modules that we're providing it and refining it.
Shelly made a good point though about, because what she was really saying, I think, is, you know, they could be at different places on that customer journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether they're aware or they're not aware, or, you know, that could change the whole focus of things as well.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's part of this entire workflow is then once we know what their goal is and the problems they have, is like, how are we creating content at those different stages of the customer journey?
Right.
But, you know, making sure we're on the same page. And, you know, again, this could be a number of things. With another suggestion, change of weight, the tattoo doesn't look quite right anymore.
Yeah, I like that too.
But like, again, it's like, if we tried to cover every single angle that we could go at
Yeah.
this with everyone, it'd be impossible. So let's just say
Yeah.
like they want to like I'm going to say their number one goal is they want to look more professional at work. Like giving it the direction, aligning it with that number one goal, remove the outdated tattoo, the challenge its her current professional identity, enhance her confidence in client-facing situations during career advancement. Like, is your tattoo holding your career back, right? Like now we're going in a direction where it's going to be more focused on like, this is why somebody's getting it, because of all the things that they could be experiencing as a result of their tattoo in their professional career. So a little bit of tweaking at the front, say, okay, that's great. Now let's move on. You sent me your product information already. Roger, you pasted it in the chat, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm just going to take that, like, okay, cool. Like, and that's why, like, we don't want to just breeze by even like that. Number one goal you're talking about, Shelly, is like, if we're unclear on like what the goal is of the person we're trying to talk to start, then the whole campaign is going to be, you know, missing the direction that we're trying to go for here. But a lot of this could just be experimental and like trying to figure out what market do you really want to be creating this for, Roger. And there could be runs of this that you realize that maybe this is a niche inside of this market that we want to be focusing on, or you create multiple of these campaigns for that reason. We see here. Yeah.
And just jumping ahead, I mean, some of the things that stand out to me is the importance of creating a patient referral program, because like people often hang out with like people, right? So, and then they also want to be able to earn something to, you know, get a free visit or get a 20% something, so that the active people that are happy with their tattoo removal can also tell their friends about it. A referral program is really important. It's the cheapest that you have, cheapest means of marketing that you have. And that would go in a newsletter. And then to go backwards, we always think of the umbrella. So, you know, you think about that hero statement. Do you have tattoos but are rethinking them? And then you can give them the multiple reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can also ask him, what's the majority reason that people are coming in and saying, please remove this? So just gather the actual data. And then he needs a strong landing page on his website that you can market using the URL of that exact site. So even in my own process, I'm deciding, do I want to make a new website called Boomers in Business, or do I want to create a landing page and say, Small Business Results is proud to present Boomers in Business? So I'm working on the same thing, but any way you look at it, we have to lead someone to something specific.
Right. And that's really what the goal of this initial part of the module is identifying who that person is and starting out the campaign that's going to be reaching that segment of the market. And then once people are in and they're a customer, they're going to be a lot more likely to refer you when they got a great result. That's part of like more of the back end marketing, I would say, in this case, which is, you know, after the point of conversion, right? Which
you can write a blog to each one of those concerns.
Right. That's the goal here. Yeah.
Right.
And so moving from the primary goal specifically for Alex of being a, you know, wanting to, you know, confidence in her appearance and express, you know, their professionalism without, you know, that burden, you know, focusing on, you know, the professional angle, client facing situations and career advancement, adding in the product information like we have, and then the information about the brand here. Then we're back to module 4. And if you put the brand information and product information in just one document, you could just upload that as a file directly to here for it to reference inside of the thread. So, you know, once you have that information, it doesn't always have to be copy and paste in.
Darby,
Yes.
you said uploaded at this point, not at the beginning, correct?
I guess in theory, you could do it all at once and have it run modules 1, 2, and 3 at the same time based on one document. I'm saying, like, if I already had the document for a product and service and brand and like a 1-pager or like a 5 or 10 page document, like that could be included probably like in module 2 and 3, just to have them uploaded directly. Does that answer your question?
It does. Okay, thank you.
So we've got the branding. Let me see where we're at here, because state the problem. So here we see, and like, this is like, again, like when we call it up before, it's like, what's the, like, why are they doing this? They want to remove it so they can advance their career professionally. Like, the big problem they're facing is like professional image impact. And so like, that's where it now is lining up with that being the problem that is going to, you know, stem a bunch of different sub problems for this, which would feed the information for the content calendar that we'd be creating. So we see like sub problems: visible tattoos in a professional setting, concerns about the removal process, overwhelming information and decision making. What are the sub specific sections? And so like, it's going into more of these different issues. That again is like, all of this is part of the testing and the research process. And the more that you know about these issues from the beginning and who your actual customers are, Roger, you're just going to rerun this and like have different versions of the type of content that you want to create based on the best customers that you want to get more of in.
Yeah, I can see how, you know, the first run of this is going to be, you know, intensive as far as the work goes and refining it and getting it. But after I get this done, then it's going to be like, you know, just replacing certain sections and rerunning it. I can see that being easy from that point on. Yeah.
I don't know, but an idea I have is to do what I do a lot, is a focus group. So can he give you 6 patients that have had their tattoos removed, that you could ask them to come into a 45-minute interview, where you could actually ask the questions: why did you want your tattoo removed? How long ago did you have them? Why did you want one? Where are you in your life? Why do you want it removed? What was the process of going through that like? But if you can interview 6 actual people, you've already just now created not only a community where people are sharing a like story, you're going to gather concrete information. I think you can make your whole strategy based on people that have already had the experience. And while they're there, you could actually record the Zoom call, the meeting, right? And then snip it and use it as video customer testimonies.
Mhm.
So I'll just jump in there because this is medical therapy. That's a great idea, Shelly. So I'm not saying anything negative about that, but because this is a medical therapy, you do have to pay attention to informed consent and
Privacy.
HIPAA. Yes.
Yes,
So it's certainly very doable, but you just have to make sure you follow that step.
correct. I agree.
And I think like that regardless of how you're approaching this method of doing this in some way, shape, or form. I mean, if you have your own framework for creating questions and things of that nature that are addressing someone, and like, I mean, Shelly, you've had years of experience with doing this, and you might have your own prompts that you'd want to put into here, right? But if we're not having these customer interactions and like talking to the actual market and getting that feedback, then a lot of this is just going to be guesswork until like we start to like put some stuff out there. And so like while we want to be able to start from, an educated like perspective and like know that this is the direction we want, and AI can help us get so far, so much more powerful when you can have a few interviews, use AI to break down those interviews, and then be like, hey, MarketSauce, help me like identify this target audience based on all of this information that actually happened. It's just going to get better the more of that information coming in. And that's just regardless of what you're doing or where you're at with it, you're always going to get better results if you're actually working with the customers and using their language and then creating campaigns around the copy that they're actually saying, using this as a starting point to help with getting that process going. So
Yeah, they may have, and I don't know, I'll have to ask, but in lieu of a focus group, they may already have intake forms that have this information too, and it might be a matter of just compiling it.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and why did you come in today? What do you need? Because they probably ask those questions. If they don't write it down, they ask those questions, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you have those intakes, and you could analyze it to say like, hey, of all of the problems that or the reasons people came in, this is the number of ones that are top. Let's go ahead and create a blueprint around those people, and then have that be the thing that's informing the rest of the marketing.
Right.
And so once we get to the point of like, okay, here's the big problems related to the number one goal, and like how we can go deeper on this section specifically. Well, I'm gonna say like, okay, great. We checked off the checkpoint questions. Okay, next module. I will be updating this GPT throughout, the next few weeks, especially because what I'm still trying to experiment with, and in terms of the actual flow of each one of these modules, is you'll notice inside of the document, and this is just a highlight because we're doing this live right now. This is module 5, which obviously comes after module 4. But what I've been playing with is a number of different like additional prompts to fit into this section that can be utilized depending on like how deep you're wanting to go in the research section or not. What I mentioned earlier, and Bruce during our hackathon in June, was working with the group that put this specific prompt together around intent-based keywords. Found this, and it works in a lot of different sections of this workflow. And so I just haven't found if there's like one tried and true best way to like initiate this prompt. But this is really helpful for kind of doing additional research into what's the language that we might want to craft call to actions around related to the person and their problem and their goal that they're coming up with. This prompt is also really helpful for just doing kind of research with ChatGPT when it's feeling and it's in a good mood, and like doing some more internet-based searching. Or you could probably, I haven't tried this in Perplexity directly, but we are experimenting with like using Perplexity for doing the research on this front. And again, for like focus group type of stuff, going to online forums like Facebook groups or Reddit threads, these prompts are pretty helpful for getting, like that portion of like the strategy, at least from the research side, is like, where are these people hanging out online? What are some of the things that they could be saying related to their intent behind getting a tattoo removal in this case? And so there's a few sections in here that are part of the outputs that we could include. But before we get into some of the community section, I'm going to actually demonstrate that, I think, around the channels, module 7, once we get down to that portion. For business objectives, this is where we're at right now. And so this is where, like, Roger, like, what's the goal with this when you're working with a client? Are you wanting to book like 10 new free consultations a week, a month? Like, those, like, are there any particular revenue goals that you're working with them? We don't have to answer all this right now, but this would be where, like, if you want a specific, if you have a specific goal for this campaign, like, I want 10 new consultations set up this month, and I want 5 of those to turn into paid consults. Like, that's where we would set our basic business objective, right here, and filling that section out, is that's going to influence, you know, the content and the stuff that we're going to be creating on that front. And sometimes if you don't give it information right out the gate, this is just what I've noticed with the GPT right now, the way it's currently set up, it's going to, like, make up goals and numbers for you. And so, like, if this isn't true, then, like, we would just, like, maybe modify it. But are there any specific goals you're aiming for right now, Roger?
No, no. And again, that would be if we're creating different pathways, you know, for the different whys, then that would be kind of hard to break down, I think.
So Dobby, at what point, I'm sorry.
In other words, if she's doing this for professional reasons, then I don't have to particular income goal for that, you know, for that why, you know. I mean, there could be, as we already determined, 6 different whys, and they would all add up to the goal. So I'm wondering how useful this is in creating the content, you know, going forward.
Yeah, and I think, like, for this is just gonna kind of give some targets for, like, I guess, you as someone that's creating this campaign. Like, what are your objectives with this specific campaign for this person? Is it to get like 10 new opt-ins from the consultation is where I would start with this, not necessarily the entire business revenue from this one particular segment of the market. But if you're running a campaign to test out something, you know, online through this, maybe, like, my goal is 100 or 10 new tattoo removal consultations this month. Like,
so Darby, we can actually, a couple of things. 3 things. One is the way I look at businesses. How much money do I want to bring in this month? Right? And then I have to say, what are my streams of revenue that I need to sell in order to make that number? And that's a direct campaign. So I say, okay, did I sell any keynotes? Did I sell anything? So all the streams of revenue give you the direction. That's 1. 2 is that I think that this whole plan has to begin with what we call a hero statement, right? And the hero statement is the basis for everything else we do. If you could give me permission to share the screen, I want to show you something that I did that was really, I think would be meaningful.
Okay.
All right, let me get in here. The heck can I get to you? Zoom, where are you? Wait a minute, I lost you for a second. Zoom, there you are. Okay, share the screen. Sorry about that. All right, so this is a client who is a chiropractor. He's got a lot of very unique things about him. And so we put, are you suffering from symptoms, illness, or chronic pain without relief or answers? And we want committed people. Are you ready to get well? Then this is who they work with. We work with patients to relieve pain, improve function, and discover underlying root causes. Call to action, and then we went into what other things he does: structural, chemical, emotional. That could be tattoo removal, whatever else you said. Big testimonials, and what a statement. We help people get back to living a healthy lifestyle. Everything I create on every client must have a hero statement. This in big and bold. Because immediately what that says to you is, and it's no different than my own LinkedIn. Are you struggling with, you small business owner struggling with, so it says the who, what they want, So this, and then from there, we take all the techniques and we blog about each one of them. We have a menu of services and we have handouts that go to, if someone called and said, what is applied kinesiology? We have an immediate one sheet that we can email them as an extra. What is it? About it? Very little content. So I don't know if that was helpful, but the hero statement is for me the basis of which we build everything else.
Maybe there's some upgrades that we can do inside of this workflow that incorporate that more near the top as we're building it out. I think depending on where you're at inside of the process for building a campaign like this, like the approach and where you're starting may change, and that's totally cool.
Yep.
And you know, obviously we're always working on improving the workflow in this particular case to help keep that content aligned. And so,
right.
You know, I think that type of statement would end up somewhere more closer to the top. And obviously setting your business objectives is going to, you know, vary based on campaign size, budget, resources, and things of that nature. And so depending on how detailed you want to get with the business objective section, you know, I think that's something, again, like a lot of this process and this workflow is going to vary between your own campaigns versus working with clients versus, you know, if you don't want to use the business objective module in this, then we just skip over it and like move on to additional, you know, stages of the prompts. And I don't want to not demonstrate some of the prompts or some of the modules in here, like Lauren, like you're saying with the intent-based. So I'm going to move on to some more of like how, as we move through this and create the campaign, how you might use that 4.5 intent-based keyword in here to, again, craft some of the messaging and some more of the research as you're going to that initial front-end marketing campaign. And you know, like I said, it goes from 4 to 5, and so it just kind of skipped over the 4.5 as I put it in there. But if you, again, like right now, where we're working through this prompt, this whole series of prompts, if it's in here, it's going to be inside of the GPT for reference points. And so you should be able to say, okay, now let's do module 4.5. And just because it has that whole document inside of its knowledge base, you'll be able to direct this GPT towards interacting with this particular module. And so this one, it's going to fill out based on the content that we've already given it up top. It's going to create this more structured content brief with different variables that is going to execute a prompt related to finding a bunch of different keywords that it would identify as stuff that has intent base behind it. And so like these type of words are going to be things that are going to incorporate into the blogs, the case studies, the articles, and the different pieces of content that you're more than likely going to end up creating. I don't know, Bruce, if you want to speak to any of this from when you were setting up this particular prompt set with like navigational intent, informational intent, commercial intent, or transactional. Some of the feedback we've gotten as we started rolling this out was that this is just really helpful in terms of how to look at the language of what you might use for different calls to actions inside of your content as well.
Yeah, so when I was doing the research on how to put the keywords together, it was just suggesting different ways that you could apply those keywords to make sure that you're using them consistently and getting the maximum SEO benefit from it all. So like for this root one, tattoo removal, navigational intent, it would just be like a call to action that you want will help me navigate to the site. Or in the informational one, obviously learn more. Commercial intent is actually a buying or you know, or intent to buy, and transactional is the actual, you know, call to action. So it's just they're just examples of how you can use that keyword in various settings.
Thank you, Bruce. And, I find it's like really helpful to kind of like thresh through and like box things out with this type of way. I don't always use this, and every time I'm doing a blueprint for a full brief run, but I thought that it would be a useful prompt to have inside of this workflow for this type of purpose, and identifying some of these initial keywords. And then like the how this builds on top of itself is like, once we've got some initial keywords, there's also the competitor market gap keywords, and clients and communities and groups. We'll just say that, like, again, as you're doing research, where these people hang out online, sometimes ChatGPT does a good job at finding these right away. Sometimes it makes up groups and just sends you to dead links. So kind of explore these as it tends to get better the better that these tools get with searching and exploring the internet. But again, especially for like community research and figuring out what the people are saying online, go to the source and use these as ways that you can kind of find and see where people are hanging out online.
Hey, Darby, going back to what Shelly was talking about, her landing page, couldn't that be another section of this, is to create the content, or for the landing page for this particular thing?
Yeah. So where we're at right now in this workflow is getting to the point where we like are knowing what our big message is to the market. And like you're saying with that, Shelly, we might need to add some additional prompting for like refining what is that statement that you're saying to this market, but like, what's the goal, right? And what are the problems they're experiencing, and getting us to the point of mapping out the content that we're going to start to create. Obviously, once we have the plan, then we go and put it in action. And that's where we're going to like get to the point where we'll wrap that part up on the content creation front. And then, whether it's a series of frameworks that you have already that you use inside of something like ChatGPT or Claude, or some other series of prompts that we'll have, that's where you would take what we're creating here as the reference point, and then actually building out that content. And so like, that's, I think you get like a number of like the AI, generative AI platforms. Okay, here's my thing. Write me a landing page for this. Write me a this for that. Like that's what we're building towards in terms of like the MarketSauce stuff too. But a lot of this, like right now with this flow, is applicable without needing to be. You could just use it inside of a ChatGPT or Claude with your own frameworks and apply it.
Yeah, with this, just throw your prompt in for whatever you want in the way of content, and it's got all the information it really needs to work from.
And so now that we've set through the first 5 modules and had this one as kind of like a sub module, that we'll continue to refine this out and give you guys the updated recipes throughout the month as we make these updates. I'm going to say continue to module 6. Oh my goodness. This would be a perfect time for ChatGPT to just like decide not to work anymore. So now the next stage inside of this workflow is starting with the front end of the marketing that is going to map out, based on the contents that we've provided from, bringing the research, bringing the brand, bringing the problems. Here's the solution. What does this look like to actually create the content that's going to address people at the awareness stage, the consideration stage, and then the decision-making stage to start? And then like, we've got to create content to some degree and like be consistent with it, right? And so like having a plan is great, but then we want to make sure that we're also then creating the content and making sure that we're able to consistently execute on producing that content. And so like for things like the awareness stage, core transform your professional appearance with safe and effective tattoo removal. Blog post, how tattoo removal can enhance your professional image. Social media post, before and after video of the technology and its benefits. So like, this whole plan could be a series of 3 posts: 1 awareness, 1 consideration, and like, or 1 consideration and 1 decision stage, and be it there. There's so many ways that you could take just this and then expand and create 10 different awareness campaign ads for it, and 10 different blogs or 10 different case studies with it, right? And again, a lot of this is going to depend on the constraints and resources that any one of us have within our own businesses or our clients' businesses. As if you're an agency with a client that has 10 different product lines and 100 different market segments, and they're testing and spending 10,000 a day in ads, like, you're going to create a lot more content to be testing on that front. But if you're just testing some initial languaging and messaging out, what are the different stages that you want to be addressing inside of that customer journey, and how are we creating content, based on that? And so it's identifying, we can see here some additional, points of the content that we can start to map out. And so like at this point, I could say like, well, I want to like really start to expand on the front end. Well, at least we're like mapping out the awareness, consideration, and decision on this point. And then we need to figure out what channels we're going to be putting that content on in the first place. And so like maybe you want to, again, in your interaction with it, I would say like, give me 5 more examples for content ideas based on each stage of the customer journey that you've given me so far. And, interact to expand on any particular section if you want to keep brainstorming at this stage for like, what's the type of content that I would create here? Top 10 reasons why professionals are opting for tattoo removal, right? So that could be a blog post, that could be a LinkedIn post, that could be some sort of post. Tattoo removal facts and myths, right? Understanding the cost of tattoo removal. So maybe they've already gotten aware of it. The next thing they see in an email is understanding the cost of tattoo removal, and they open that and they're interested about it. That sends them to a blog or something along those lines. Moving them down, again, conversationally engaging inside of this GPT. Say, okay, well, those are some good ideas. Well, that's great. Well, now I want to move on to the channels based on where my target market is. And so if you already know that your market is hanging out on LinkedIn, or if they're like primarily on Instagram, or if they're in some way, shape, or form at a in-person event or at a conference, and that's where you want to focus a campaign around, again, just determining where you're going to be, producing and publishing your content to. Which obviously website and email, I think, are a given. But also, like, if you're just starting out and you don't know where everyone is at, then, I guess in your case, Roger, you want to look at like, where is your company already have content and information at, and probably just starting there for like, what's the lowest hanging fruit. Like starting a YouTube channel from scratch is probably going to be a lot bigger lift than like tapping into your existing email list and blog. And, email is going to be the fastest way to test some of these headlines out on the subject headline, test it out. But maybe like a webinar, a video, YouTube, it gives us like a channel prioritization, but ultimately it's like, okay, it's up to you as the marketer or operator behind this to like discern where you actually want this content to be going. On that front, if we're doing a full omni-channel approach here, then yeah, you might be on every single channel, and you just want to make sure that you're mapping out how you're putting the content onto that channel and where it's getting out here. And so, especially on this stage, it's just like, well, if you already know, an example, the game changer clients that we're working with, they're all of their clients are basically on LinkedIn, whether it's reaching with their ads, groups, articles, direct messages, and then email and webinars. And like, those are the core channels that they're reaching them at. And then they can continue to branch out from there, but they're really focused just on like, okay, how do we focus on LinkedIn as a channel and create a campaign that's going to target our audience there? And so like, that's where we'd want to like keep that focus, especially on a smaller, more limited budget. And a test like this, like, where's the lowest hanging fruit? And so I'm just going to say we have a LinkedIn following, a email list, and a YouTube channel. Let's focus on those 3 and then continue. Checking the chat here as well, guys. Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Bruce. If you want to send me a link or otherwise, then I'll make sure to include that with the resources.
Yep, no worries.
Again, this is all the channels going to be subjective to the information that you are bringing to the table as well about where your audience is, and spending that time researching so they know that you're actually meeting them where they're at online. This is going to map out some ways that you could approach the different channels and the different content types, and give some ideas for how this strategy could be executed. And from there, once we've got the channels dialed in and we know that we're going to be focusing on a certain amount of channels, we can move to the actual content planner side, which I'm trying to get this one to where it comes out in that sort of graph view, because it's a lot easier to read and look at that front. But I'm not sure if it's going to do that on this next stage exactly. So you might just need to ask it for. So like now let's go on to the next module. So saying go on to the next module, module 8, content planner. So here, based on the content that we've given it, it's reprompting itself, which I'm going to work on ways to maybe not have it reprompt itself every time. But we look at the 90-day monthly theme, awareness and education on month 1, month 2, overcoming concerns, month 3, success stories and testimonials. If you say, no, I just want this to be a 1-month campaign, maybe week 1 is the case. Then you have week 2, week 3, review, and then refine. Like, don't feel like you have to do a 90-day campaign for every one of these, but it's set up to where it'll help with creating content for the weeks within a month. So say like, okay, well, based on the contents and the direction that we've provided it so far, month 1, week 1, week 2, week 3, and looking at this as content that we could then take and then put into the content creation side of things to begin starting to produce the content for all the channels and other things that we're creating content for.
Darby, if let's say we generated this for a 90-day plan, and then our client wanted to do a 1-month plan.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay to just come back into the same chat and ask it for that new 3 weeks later and ask it for a new plan? Is there any problems with that?
Sometimes you run into issues if a chat gets too long, that it starts to lose context throughout it, and it, usually, like in this case, it's keeping a good hold on the thread for there. But I mean, you'll see if you just keep coming back to the same thread for every time you're running a campaign, you'll probably kind of muddle it up with too much context. If we stopped right here and then you went to talk to your client, they're like, well, let's take this and refine it. Like, you're probably in a good place to take this and adjust it from here as you start to modify the campaign. But then after 3 weeks, hopefully you've got some more insight from what you've been doing on the market that you might want to refine potentially what that next calendar could look like based on if you're taking a different shift or an approach. If you wanted to come back to this thread, I mean, I just would keep it inside like a Google Sheet or a Notion file or wherever is somewhere easy for you to remember. Because if you're just looking at all these threads, it can get easily lost.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say, like, okay, I like the 90-day content plan, but I actually just want to do a solid 30-day plan that covers the customer journey to get them to booking free consultations. Can you refine the content map to just be 30 days? Sorry about that. I don't know how I ended up all the way at the top. Yeah, so then you just go back in and kind of say like, okay, I've got this plan, I got this thread, just refine it and make adjustments to it as you would see it here. And so there may be several iterations of how you want to actually like approach each week. And, as you're reading through this, making the decision to move forward or refine it, ask it to, hey, no, I actually want to focus on this type of content during these weeks. engage in the process, and then, week 4 case success stories and call to action. Sorry, did somebody come on? Content objectives, videos. Again, this is part of the instructions where it's like kind of explaining why it's giving out some of this information, where you might want to put some of your resources. So whether it's content writer, social media manager, producer, estimated time, whatever key metrics you're going to want to track, such as engagement, website traffic, conversions, and, what do the next steps look like? Like, this is still kind of like, whenever I even see it from ChatGPT, this is like a little bit hard to like process, just because it's a lot of information when you get to this point. But it's been around for a while. I think the graph view, like we saw earlier with some of the outputs for the intent-based keywords, if you just ask ChatGPT to give you that sort of output, usually it'll take the content and help with organizing it in like a table setting. Now take the 30-day plan and create it inside of a table that I can easily review and see what date, time, and channel to publish the content to. I think I made a prompt that made this part like something similar like that I'll update the workflow with. But here, if you're looking at like, okay, like daily, what do we need to be doing now to actually get content out and be consistent with it? Whether it's you or whether it's somebody else, having a calendar set up that you or the client are on the same page with how they're going to be producing it or scheduling or sending emails. To me, this is a little bit easier of a view to getting it on here. The next step would be, again, I know, Bruce, you're working with people instead of like go high level for starting to schedule and get content prepped and, created out there. But from this stage of this workflow, like while we've got the whole back end aspect of it, once somebody onboards and does it, like we just frankly don't have the time today to dive in through like the full back end of this aspect, but I'll be sharing some more videos on it inside of the group for how to execute those stages of the recipe. But now it's time to like actually create the content. And this is where like whether you're using ChatGPT, whether you're using Claude, whether some other large language model, if I'm saying, okay, well, now I need to create how Pico laser technology revolutionizes, tattoo removal. Like, well, now it's either like I'm going to give it a prompt or an instruction on like what format or framework do I want to use to create this content. If it's your task to just create some basic educational content, it's like now let's move on to module 9 to start the content creation. Please provide a framework around day 1 and a prompt that you can execute to create the content for the LinkedIn post, email, newsletter that will be sent out on this day. Again, I'm sure there's going to be more ways we're going to figure out how to automate this stage of the game as we're getting the content actually created and put out there. But again, depending on how you're actually going about producing this content, if video first, or is it just going to be text, or is it X, Y, or Z? What framework are you using? That's kind of where we can come into the content creation part. Okay, well, day 1, I'm going to create the content. I'm going to go and schedule it out to social media. I'm going to post it and then set up the emails and do that sort of thing. So it's kind of giving an initial structure. It's giving, a prompt for it. And again, like if it's just, AI doing it, again, it's going to get the first draft that way, like written out for you. But there's certainly more levels of, writing and adjusting the contents that's coming out of here before you'd actually go on to publish it. So if it's you doing it, or if it's an assistant, or if you have another AI tool that you use to, execute the content creation part of it, you'd want to basically get the content out to, email and the different channels that you're going to be promoting it to. And if you try to do all of that inside of this thread directly, it's going to become an extremely long thread. From this point, we've got the campaign content above that you can take and turn into, you know, its own Google document and use that as a brief and as a reference point for, you know, even just reviewing it to make sure that you actually want to create content around specific topics, or if you want to refine anything. You know, you don't have to, you know, execute everything that's inside of here, but, you know, maybe there's like certain angles or certain elements that you really found stick out to you that you want to explore more. And then creating the content and putting it out there. The next part of it is, again, where we're gonna just show like now module 10. This is where like things like the back end, like how do you set up the follow-up sequence? Are you booking people in? Are you following up for reviews? Do you have a referral program in place? And so this, and that's what basically the module 10 in here is, we have it set up right now, is to kind of help with fleshing out some of those things after somebody makes a decision to start to work with you, or, you know, do that first call to action. And then, you know, getting the back end system set up for follow-up, and, you know, ideally you're able to turn your, you know, your customers into your referral machines, like you're talking about, Kelly, is like the most cost-effective, or one of the more cost-effective, is, you know, having people just refer more business after they've had a great experience. And so, you know, if that's something you don't have, then maybe you want to explore that on the back end a little bit more. And maybe depending on the customer journey, this part needs to be fleshed out a bit more with how they're already upselling customers into additional services, and however the business operates. Could go a number of different ways, but I think, like, you know, at the end of the day, like what this section of the recipe is going to do is kind of help with outlining some things you can do from the back end to start to initiate like client retention activities, referral programs, and upselling and cross-selling. You know, and, you know, the referral program might be something you can, you know, set up once and then it works for all the different segments that you're targeting. But the different upselling and cross-selling sequences are going to, you know, depend on what service they're coming in for. So you'd write a specific upsell or cross-sell sequence for people doing tattoo removal. You know, maybe they actually do want a hair removal service too that the company offers, and they just weren't aware of it. You want to, you know, have the nurturing and the emails and education happening after the fact. And so that brings us to the end of this workflow, the game changer GPT, where starting from the beginning of the initial roadmap, it's like figuring out who that persona is that we're going to be creating the campaign to, right? What's their main goal? What are the problems they're experiencing right now? And what's the product or service that, you know, we have that is addressing and providing a solution to the person that we've identified? What's the brand that we're running this with, the company? And then building out the marketing matrix for, based on the problem that the person is experiencing around their number one goal. How are we creating, you know, what are all the questions and the different problems and sub problems and solutions that we could bring as a product, service, or brand to solving those problems? You know, business objectives, we covered that a bit, but again, we could certainly spend some more time on what that looks like, and depending on the types of campaigns that you're running and what your objectives are. We could certainly go deeper into that side of the setting the objectives based on your campaign goals, but then kind of mapping out on the front end, like what are the channels and what are the front end marketing efforts that we're going to use to drive awareness, consideration, and decision making in our marketing to specifically for that target audience. Getting a content planner out to kind of have an idea about when are we going to start producing this campaign, what channels are we going to be producing it on, and then actually creating the content once all of those ducks are in a row, so to speak, to start to test, experiment what's working, what's not, getting people that are actually opting in to deliver the product or service, and then of course following up with them, cross-selling, upselling, referral programs, and different forms of client retention that are all the back end side of marketing here. So covered a lot, and we'll continue to cover more of this over the course of the month with you guys here as we put this into action and as we refine the campaigns that you are bringing to market, but bringing it all back into where we started at the first place, which is like who we're talking to, what's their number one goal at the end of the day. And ideally, this is someone that you can actually point to that you've worked with in your business, or, that you can have a conversation with, and then use that conversation to create a persona that the AI can identify and help with building that blueprint to crafting and positioning those products and services of your brand to that specific segment of the market, so that you're speaking their language and addressing the problems that they're experiencing right now. Got about 20 minutes left on today's call. And so I know that was quite a bit that we walked and covered through here. Wanted to demonstrate each one of the modules as best we could in the time we had here today. So you could see how to operate within each step of that workflow. And again, we've got another call set up for next week for kind of following up and some QA, but I want to open up the floor.
When is that, Darby? When is that date and time?
10 o'clock on the 8th. I will be sending out email invites. I just posted it inside of the community this morning, and we'll more than likely have a few other calls that I'll schedule out in between then, but want to open up the floor now. If there's any questions, comments, or thoughts that you guys want to hop on, if we have the last 20 minutes of this workshop.
I got something real quick. I noticed in the GPT, if you don't know what your answers are, you can say, please help me with that, or I don't know, and it'll fill in the answers for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great for ideation on that point.
The other prompt that I use all the time is, if you've already been working, then you say based on that content, and then you can ask the question. But based on that content helps me so much. You can just keep repeating it. Okay, based on that, can you give me 10 blogs? Based on that, can you give me a call to action? So anyhow, that works.
I was also thinking, I wonder if you could have a virtual focus group with a group of avatars. Be kind of interesting to see if you could do that.
Say it again. Say more about that, Chris. What do you think?
We have the avatars that in the segment. So the MarketSauce, you could pick a segment, and I'm just thinking on the technical back end in terms of MarketSauce, if you could create a bunch of avatars based on a segment, and then have a focus group where you actually discuss, you have a discussion with those avatars on what their problems are.
So I actually love doing that, Chris. It's a great idea, because part of what people get discouraged on at the very beginning, like, why a business coach? There are 20 million business coaches. Why do I want to do this? How am I going to stand out? But when you put a group of, say, one industry in the room, 10 massage therapists or 10 chiropractors, they are forced to talk about what makes them different. Because they can't, it's like when clients call me and I say, what do you do? I help people who are stuck. Okay, you and 9 trillion other people are using the same language. So what else can you do? How can you reframe that? But it's great in terms of learning how to articulate who you are.
That sounds cool too. But when Chris said it, Shelly, so I agree, right? But Chris, when you said it, the first thing I thought was these were virtual and you wanted to use ChatGPT to have the initial conversation.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that'd be interesting. I mean, not instead of it's always better to get real people in a room.
Yeah.
Right? Shelly, I agree, but I thought that's where I thought you were going, and I was like, that sounds cool. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking. I wonder how different it would be versus real people. It'd be kind of cool to maybe compare AI avatars to a discussion with real people to see what you came up with.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Roger, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I'm trying to get clear on subsequent interactions. So like you've just gone through this whole thing and you've gotten the GPT responses and so forth. You mentioned creating a Google Doc or whatever. Would you then you would just cut and paste into that Google Doc the results that met with your approval basically,
Mhm.
and stack them and then go into not necessarily the GPT you created, or maybe you do, but then you feed it and say, here's what I know. And now I would like to create a content calendar or a blog post about XYZ.
Mhm.
Is that the approach that I
Yeah,
should take?
that's how I do it right now. If
Okay.
I'm doing it manually through like one of these blueprints or a full thing like we did, is like going and just cherry picking the pieces that are most relevant that you want to kind of refine inside of a document. Then when you do that, you're creating kind of your knowledge base for this particular segment with all that information. So now, I mean, again, I just have like Google Drive folders full of these and go open up the doc, like, okay, cool. Plug that into GPT or Claude, and then, or I mean, like even if you're like using a tool like Jasper that has, you can upload a knowledge base to it for referencing and its content, like this will still apply to that, like too, once you have the content. So you don't have to like repeat building out a whole avatar every single time.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, John.
Hey, Darby. If I'm using say Perplexity or Claude, the MarketSauce prompts, how are they transferred into those other platforms? Is it
Perplexity, the way Perplexity works when I've been testing it, it's good for like the researching, like find groups online that'll do X, Y, or Z, and kind of like it does well with that. Like less like, hey, create like a paragraph or a blog post about like this. It's much more on the research side. And so I don't use the majority of these prompts when it be directly in Perplexity, but I would probably, I don't know how you're using it, Chris, on the MarketSauce automation front, but for like finding groups like Reddit and stuff, I find it's a bit, I think it's more accurate from when I've tested it. Doing like intent-based keywords for like the groups and communities. ChatGPT can kind of still be hit or miss in that regard. But Claude, I've only had it happen once in the past week or two where it actually had access to the internet. Like historically, Claude has not been able to like do anything on the internet, but I've seen other people saying, I think Bruce, you mentioned it the other day. Claude is, I don't think, very far away from everyone being able to search and do that within Claude. For the actual prompts, like if we did the exact same workflow here, I've been doing the same thing inside of Claude as well and testing it on that front. And there's some instances where it's better, some where I don't really know a difference, and some where I can't build a GPT in Claude right now the same way that we interacted with it. And so that's why I chose to use the GPT with this. But I imagine that Gemini would produce on like a section by section basis, like maybe similar results. I just haven't tested it with every LLM out there, but I do find it like the way that I would interact with a Claude instance would basically follow the same workflow. I would just have to copy and paste every module into it. And then
okay, no, that makes sense.
Perplexity. So I've found that it still hallucinates. So I use it for the intent-based keywords, and then anything that needs internet access for like the user groups to find out where the ideal customer lives, basically. It'll still, like Darby mentioned, it'll still make things up. And then I was working on something else that had to do with real estate, and it was giving me false information, whereas ChatGPT was giving me the correct information. So be careful when you use it. Don't assume that it's always correct.
So the case study search that the Perplexity allegedly you could use, it's still giving invalid data sometimes, like any other LLM.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's less frequent, because it does provide sources, as long as the source is good, that's usually okay. But
Yeah, you just got to check the sources and check the links and make sure they're real.
Mm-hmm.
Usually
Yeah,
what I do is I end up copying and pasting whatever the output is and throwing it into a different module. So if I got something in ChatGPT, I'll throw it into Claude to say, is this correct? Oh, and then if not there, then I'll go into Bing and use its GPT to see if it's correct. And then that's how I determine whether something is right or not.
I had an instance where I got an answer. It was just yesterday. Someone asked if I could look up, like, based on a blueprint, what's the total addressable market for that audience and the areas they were looking at. And I was like, sure, let's see what ChatGPT comes up with. And like the first two answers, I was like, there's no way that this is the right answer. And then I went to Perplexity, and because it gave me two different answers. And then I went to Perplexity, and it was like, how many businesses in these specific states? And it was like right on point with finding like the total addressable market with these different states, the business sizes. Like, you know, I was like, this, I would never like be able to get that information that fast, like otherwise. But I also was like, ChatGPT gave me two really different answers right away. And I was like, let's see what another source says.
hey, Chris, when you doing that on the back end, I know on the user interface, there's a pro search and a regular search. On the back end, when you're doing the API version, is there the option for pro versus standard?
No, I think you need the pro version to get access to the API. I got access to the API early, and you'd actually have to. So I have to build the API calls manually in the automation tool that I'm using, and I'd have to dig into the documentation to see if there's an option for that. But I just assume that you need a pro account to use the API.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if, I'm assuming that Pro does a deeper internet search before returning answers. So I was just wondering if maybe we would get more reliable results if there's a way to somehow flag it as a Pro search versus a regular.
I'll take a look at that.
And one of the things when I was having it search for statistics to write a blog post in Perplexity, when I told it specifically I needed numerical statistics, it did a better job of returning true statistics rather than just facts. So I don't know, sometimes the slight keyword change can make a difference. And maybe say only come from verified sources or something, I don't know. And maybe tell it, do not fabricate. If you don't have answers, tell me so, don't fabricate or something like that. I've done that as well too, to try and keep it from hallucinating.
The AIs, man, just out here hallucinating on us, not making our jobs any easier, but certainly helping in a lot of ways. Well, I appreciate everyone here for joining in with us live. And really, this is day one of a full month that we're going to be inside of the community, hosting additional QAs and calls to work through if we're running into any roadblocks with executing the workflow, to really like looking at ways that we can support in not just like on the calls, but like putting this stuff into action, and like how are you finding it effective inside of your workflow and your use case? Because again, a lot of these are still kind of done either within GPT, or you can take and go use the prompts in a number of different platforms. We are working, I don't know if every single one of these modules will end up inside of the MarketSauce platform directly, but a lot of them will in some way, shape, or form. And I'm going to share that with you right now, Roger. And I want to just give you guys kind of an insight. And we've been spending a lot of time working through how the actual platform is going to work to help simplifying getting the blueprints and the avatars aligned with the different objectives, so that we can start to have these conversations with AI to create the content calendars or refine the messaging that we're creating a little bit. So I just got this back this morning from Franco, who is working with me and our team. on the front end of it. Chris, of course, is working with us on the back end to make sure that everything goes smooth with the actual content. But for those, everyone here that is a part of this specific group is, you're going to be the first ones to get exposed to like being able to use this platform as we're building it out this month. And, we're really close to being able to actually have it loginable and have your own portal to do this. So basically, like when we've covered having like the company or in the campaigns that we're creating, like a company, you replace that with the brand. This is going to have that information about a brand built into it. And then the campaigns are going to be like the different product or service that we're running, and creating an avatar around. And so like as of right now, you see like the dashboard for the main is going to be in the middle. On the right-hand side is going to be how you could operate it on mobile. So we could submit these blueprints if you're on the go, or even what I'm excited about is after placing an order, which we're still determining how the credits are going to apply, and how all that's going to work. But the flow isn't going to change much as it does right now. We're just trying to help with streamlining the process of getting these blueprints super dialed in so that you can like, kind of like you mentioned with like talking with your different avatar segments and like having these conversations and brainstorming is like simulating that conversation to get ideas and, refine your messaging based on that. So once you've uploaded, and again, it's not functional just yet in terms of like letting you guys log in to start to do this, but like Roger, you'd be able to upload one of your brand companies here. This is the campaign we're going to be running around this product or service or tattoo removal. And then, okay, like maybe add a little bit more information about you specifically. Additional context. I think that might've been yeah. So where's the one that I did here? Yeah, selecting file. And so this is where, like when we're talking about interviewing your customers, like turning a customer interview into like an avatar that you can talk with and like have that be the North Star for what you're creating content around. We're getting it to where you'll be able to upload like a transcript file from a customer interview or a focus group. And then what that's going to do is send it through the MarketSauce system to then creating different avatars that this is where like your blueprints will be housed. Right now, have different segments that you can explore and kind of keep them organized inside of here. And then again, I still rough on in terms of like timeline for the chat functionality for how it's going to plug in with the platform, but being able to say like, hey, MarketSauce chat, talk to Susan, talk to Annie, talk to Tom, and talk to Monique, and like see if there's like any underlying themes from like all of their like profiles that match up with our company and our service, or just talk to this person about what content would maybe resonate with them based on the number one goal that they're striving for, and getting that content through some sort of chat functionality. At the very least, being able to get these blueprints and then being able to run and refine additional blueprints, as your market evolves, as your products and services change, as you get more information. It's kind of where we're at right now. And so once, probably, I mean, Chris is going to go to take a vacation on us. So it's going to probably be another week before we're ready to start really like turning up the onboarding for this. But that's my goal, is to get this to the point where for anyone that's starting out one of these campaigns, to get that customer profile dialed in and as your source of truth for like building out any number of these additional go-to-market campaigns that you're putting into action. So stay tuned for more updates on that. And I will be sending out an email invite. Send out an email invite for next week's call, and then any additional timing that we do after that. And also be posting inside of the group for any updates that we make in between now and then.
And Chris, if you want to reach out and you want to talk about the ghostwriting thing, just shoot me an email.
Okay. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Be happy to.
Appreciate that.
In the
Awesome, guys.
meantime, go
Yeah.
look at Gail Harris. Gail Harris on LinkedIn. Look at her there and look forward to her website. We relanguaged her website and the LinkedIn thing just has worked amazingly well. That's
I'm
a good
sending you that
question,
thread.
Darby. Can you speak to that certification piece a little bit?
Yeah, the certification. Yeah, this would be our first round doing any sort of like official certification with the MarketSauce program. And so, really at the end of the day, like we're looking for people that can understand and implement this process, not just for themselves, but just show that you're competent in understanding how to run these workflows for creating campaigns to your clients. So like not like a lot of bells and whistles or like hoops to jump through, but like if you're running through and creating these reports and getting the content out there and sharing like kind of like how are you going to use this in your consulting and with your own clients, like that'll kind of be like make the sense if you're going to actually pass a certification or not. It's not like a 6-week program, you have to fill out a bunch of stuff, but it's kind of like the results of like running this workflow and showing competence in it. Then we'll give you either like the thumbs up or the thumbs down. So if you don't do anything and you just don't show up to the rest of the calls and don't, actually execute the workflow, then you're not going to get certified. But,
Well, the other when you want, we can, the constant contact certification, you and I could log in. I can show you the kinds of questions. I forget, it's like 50 questions they have to be done within an hour. You have 2 or 3 rounds that you can redo it again for the cost. Do they charge? No, if you're a partner, they don't charge. But anyhow, if you want some help around that, I'm happy to show you.
Yeah. So maybe something just simple like that, that we could just show like that you have like answer the questions, that you're competent in the process that we've demonstrated and can apply it then.
Yep.
Yeah, then we'll make sure you get taken care of. Let me see. And and just to highlight, they put a pin in that's being developed this month based on this masterclass. And so like we're just building that as we're kind of flying, which is how we do things here. We'll get you guys squared away. Because ultimately, like my goal is to be able to help empower you to implement this in not only your business, but for clients as well. And, report back how you're getting results, because that's only going to help us improve the product. And for access to the other workflows, yeah, we've got some libraries and some resources inside the community. Lyra and I will follow up with you directly to see what we need to get you access to that you don't already have access to. I'm going to make a note for that right now. Cool. All right, guys, we got to hop here. Jumping into
Darby.
another call. Thank y'all.
Thanks,
We'll see you guys next week and inside the community. Cheers, y'all.